Okay, it's 6:30. We're going to call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk?
Mayor Troopman,
Here.
Vice Mayor Samaria, Commissioner Johnson Sadella,
You have an answer on that, sir?
Commissioner Tudor,
Here.
Commissioner Wise,
Here.
Thank you. Stand for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Attorney, could you please read the decorum rules for me, please? And please don't forget to have the mic close. Thank you.
Hello? Okay. All comments must be addressed to the Commission as a body and not to individuals. Any person making impertinent or slanderous remarks or who becomes boisterous while addressing the Commission shall be barred from further audience before the Commission by the presiding officer, unless permission to continue or again address the Commission is granted by a majority vote of the Commission members present. No clapping, applauding, heckling, or verbal outbursts in support or in opposition to a speaker or his or her remarks shall be permitted. No signs or placards shall be allowed in the Commission chambers. Please mute or turn off your cell phone or pager at the start of the meeting. Failure to do so may result in being barred from the meeting. Persons exiting the chamber shall do so quietly.
Thank you. Open to the floor for public comments. Is there anybody for public comments?
Rox Ross, 11166 Griffin Boulevard. I didn't thoroughly read what was presented in the backup because I just realized it was available at 3 o'clock this afternoon. I had been looking for it, but didn't see it till then. Just first off, sort of procedurally and how the code gets amended, what is being proposed is an amendment to section Article 2 of the code. And the first 7 articles of the code, along with the Bill of Rights, are called the Charter. The Charter can only be amended by a vote of the village residents or registered voters. So what you're proposing, when I first proposed it, was by resolution. It's an agreement of how you're going to conduct your meetings. But I understand you may want to have this proposal have teeth to it, particularly with the Sergeant of Arms and what you're planning, how you're planning to conduct your meetings. So you may want to have it codified somewhere else and not in the Charter, because it specifically provides at Section 6.02 that the Charter can only be amended by a vote. With regard to the details of what is being proposed, I think it's a little overkill. We have needed rules for a long time, although we seem to have survived for all these years without them. And specifically, it leaves out things that are already in place by resolution, like the 8-day rule to submit items for the agenda. That's in BP's Resolution 2010-5, and the rule that establishes a consent agenda at BP Resolution 2011-13. I'd ask you to reconsider some of the more stringent provisions that are made here. For example, unauthorized individuals approaching the dais are strictly prohibited, and they may result in removal from the Commission. This has always been a relaxed and quiet environment at the village, even despite having disagreements. In fact, when this building was opened again, one of the commissioners proposed that we not have a dais and instead just have throw pillows on the floor and gather around and have our meetings in an informal way. So somewhere between that and where we are now, I hope that you could strike the correct compromise. Thank
Thank you. Mr. Ross?
Chuck Ross, 11166 Griffin Boulevard. Echo everything my wife said, of course. I would add that to do this without proper notice for the public and to offer the materials out the afternoon of the meeting is unbelievable, frankly. You ran on transparency. This is like, this is complete darkness. As far as again, the attorney should have picked up on what my wife said. This demonstrates what I've been trying to hammer in. You have this an attorney that doesn't know local government. She doesn't know our charter. She misspoke at the last budget hearing about the amendment. She was absolutely incorrect about what she said. Read the charter, or read the code, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And you need to do something about replacing this person. Thank you.
Thank you. With no further public comments, we'll close public comments. With that, we had at the last workshop asked for the attorney to draft a memo. I know, Commissioner Tudor, this was really your spearheading this workshop. Would you like?
Actually, this is.
I know,
yeah,
but I'm
yeah,
being since I know.
Any one commissioner. So yeah, this is a team effort between the commission, residents who attend. So yeah, I'd be interested to find out from the attorney what her office came back with.
Okay. So if we may, we'll start with that, and then we'll go from commissioner comments after that, and then vice mayor's asked to be first, and so that would be fine.
Sure. So we held our first workshop in July, and at the conclusion of that workshop, the commission requested that I put together a memo of all the items the commission was exploring and discussed in the first workshop. So this memo aren't my recommendations or drafts. What it really is, it's a hybrid of the various ordinances that were discussed in some sort of roadmap for discussion today. I'd like to go one by one in the order that they've been compiled. I've tried to review the draft resolution that the commission discussed at the last meeting. I believe there was a rule of decorum from a municipality in California that the commission agreed was fairly reasonable. The commission liked a large portion of the Miami-Dade County rules of procedure for commission meetings. I think some of them are overkill for such a small municipality, but I think we should go through them one by one for discussion. So this memo, just want to be clear, is not necessarily my recommendation or my drafting of an ordinance. I haven't been instructed to do that yet by the commission. This is me consolidating the ordinances, the sample ordinances that were discussed at the last meeting, so we can go through the topics and talk about what the commission thinks would work for the village, would not work for the village. So I have a charge for drafting for a first read, because this is not a first read, and this isn't the proposed ordinance. This is for discussion.
Okay, and assuming at that point we'll be able to suss out the differences if there, as one of the residents who spoke had concerns about the charter, what was in that, I'm assuming that if you would be address that, just to make sure we'd answer that question.
Sure. Section 401 of the charter deals with commission meeting procedure, and it says the commission shall determine its own rules of procedure and order of business. But then in your code, section 216 discusses meetings. If you want to put this in your charter, you can add it to the ballot for November 2020, but then you won't have procedures for a year and a few months. You have the ability to create your own procedures by ordinance, by going through the process we're going through now, doing a first read, second read, the codification procedures. And
So
I think it would be
I'm sorry, I would just, if I might clarify, Madam Mayor. So what you're saying is the resident's objection was either in error, or she was presuming that this piece of work that we're working on now was incorporated merely by reference because it's mentioned in Section 4 of the Charter, but she was incorrect that it is actually a part of our Charter.
I think she was confused. I wouldn't say she's incorrect, because the charter does reference commission meetings procedures, but it puts the power back on the commission to create its own procedures. So the charter does reference commission rules. But if you go
But it doesn't incorporate this part of the code by reference.
right.
Yes.
your code also allows for you to and that's this. My recommendation is that's a safer place to do it because the commission can pivot a lot quicker in amending something that's not working if it's in your code as opposed to your charter. If you want to amend your charter, we've been discussing that a lot lately, that has to go to an election.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that so that none of our residents think that we're making some sort of end run to amend something that is properly amended via vote in the charter. Just wanted to clarify that is not what is happening tonight.
No, this is a discussion about potential future directive to the village attorney to draft a proposed ordinance for a first and second read at later properly noticed meetings to add rules of procedure to the village code.
Exactly. Thank you. I just wanted to have that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
And-
Commissioner Tudor, go ahead.
I think it's important to note, sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's important to note that the charter does direct that the commission will establish its own meeting procedures, which I don't recall a commission ever establishing, a new commission coming on and having a meeting about procedures and establishing that. That's probably what probably should have happened and should be happening is when a new commission comes on. One of the initial meetings with the new commission is an orientation on the meeting procedures and having a discussion if there should be any changes. But yeah, I think I agree with the attorney that, this is more of a workshop to identify what language we want to include into to amend section 4.01 of the codes.
Yeah, right, 216.
Yeah, and 216 is the...
216 is the code.
Yep.
Which is easier for the committee. It's more flexible. The code is just in general more flexible because the procedure is easier.
Now, I'm sorry.
And it would allow other commissions that come on board who decide, we want to be a little bit more lenient here, or things have changed. We want to do A, B, and C.
Right. Not everything.
Make those amendments.
Yeah, because
Right,
things
and
are timing. A
Right,
lot
and
of
there's
this
going
is
to be
timing.
things in here that I think collectively the commission will probably say, this is the village, it's not the county, we don't need that. But it would be inappropriate for me to amend that. That's the commission's decision. I haven't been given a directive to draft anything yet. And I also want to make a point about resolutions. I understand in the past the village has done a lot of things by resolution that really should have been codified. So if there are resolutions regarding procedures in the past that the commission wants to discuss today, I highly recommend that because a resolution is really an inappropriate way to adopt rules of procedure for commission meetings. And the reason for that is your code states that certain things require an ordinance. And one of them is to adopt or amend an administrative regulation or establish, alter, abolish any village office, department, board, agency, committee, or authority. That's one. And then the other is establish a rule or regulation, the violation of which carries a penalty. So if you want the rules of procedure for your meetings to have teeth and have the ability to have enforcement, which I think is a big sticking point for why we're going through this process right now, it has to be an ordinance. So I know there's other resolutions from past years that address commission procedures, and they probably have very, very good items that you want to keep and codify. So I would recommend that the commission members explore those, and if there's items they want included in the code language, they speak up about it.
And I will say this as a person who came on. I made a mistake with vice mayor at one time. I thought something had passed that hasn't. I also found resolutions that you dig through and you don't know. If it's a 10-year-old resolution or a 15-year-old resolution, it was intended as, it's not a, in other words, I concur with you that we have for years tried to avoid the cost of an ordinance and turn used resolutions, but it does a disservice because it's not codified. So I concur with you on that.
Right, and just big picture, please remember that if you want to pass or adopt something as a commission that would carry a penalty, it has to be in an ordinance. It cannot be in a resolution. So any resolution that creates a rule, you can't really ever enforce it because there's no teeth to it. And if you add teeth, you're violating your own code via resolution. It should be in the code.
Thank you very much for clarification. Vice Mayor had asked that he wanted to make a statement prior to us proceeding. If there's no objection by the commission.
No.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Anytime the commission meets, doesn't matter if it's called a workshop, residents have a right to be notified. Not everyone is going to look at the website calendar the day before. Ironically, this is policy and procedure workshop. and we aren't following our policies and procedures that exist. How did we come up with this date without asking the commission? Why was policy and procedures put ahead of communication? And some commissioners talking to each other because we had one date, and I was chose from one date. We also need a backup. Without the residents don't have any idea what the meeting of the workshop is about. I found out the backup was at 3 o'clock. I didn't get, to know about this backup late. For me to look at this right now is unbelievable. Once again, the way the workshop was handled, there was no transparency. When the commission doesn't get back up in advance, it just makes meetings last longer. And we have to read everything that we ask questions at the meeting instead of getting some of the things to figure out in advance. Christian, I would like to know how we came up with this date. Did you poll each of the commissions in advance? I didn't hear from you. At least the last commission meeting, the clerk was asked to come up with the dates for commissioners to choose. This was not a specific date. And what was the urgency to have all these 3 workshops done right away when we have 2 workshops that we have done, the construction workshop and the swale workshop, it has not been brought back to the commission?
I was following the direction of the commission on the last commission meeting to set up 3 workshops, one for policies and procedures, one for communication, and one for branding.
Right.
The clerk has sent out numerous dates, I believe, via email, and correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Clerk.
Correct.
And to try and...
I got the email, was only one date that I got, September 18th, for procedures, and then it was switched to communication, then it was switched to branding. There was no specific until I looked on the website now, and it has...
Right. We were originally going to do communication on this one, and then we looked at the minutes from the last commission meeting and noted that the commission directed us to do policies and procedures first, communication second, and then branding third. That was why it was changed to policies and procedures.
I was only given one date. I'm just curious on why I was only given the 18th for this meeting to choose from. What happened tonight is I lost because I take my job very seriously as a commissioner. I lost $600 tonight for a B job that I had to do that I could not postpone because I had a choice. I could have did the job and not showed up to the commission meeting, but I take showing up as a commissioner very seriously. So I sacrificed $600 tonight for a job that if I would have had a couple days notice, 3 or 4 days notice about this, I could have worked around. That's the only question I have.
Yeah,
because this wasn't brought out to the public. I mean, as we see, there's no residents here. We just had 2 residents.
Madam Clerk, when was this originally announced? Do you remember the date? Because I don't know the date off the top of my head. I can go through emails and find that.
The policies and procedures was announced on yesterday.
Okay.
For, for the 18th.
Had we already reserved
We are trying
this
to,
date
on the 17th, on Monday we are trying for the 17th and 18th, and I didn't get any answer. So that's when I realized that instead of communication and brand, we need to have the policies and procedures first.
Okay.
So Monday I start to asking for dates.
Yes, I can just confirm. I have an email dated Monday, September 16th at 4:50 p.m. where meetings, policies, and procedures was announced for today, Wednesday, September 18th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m.
And I received several emails. I don't recall the dates. I'm not going to waste commission time on this, but we did receive several emails asking what dates were available. And I remember it was the first week in September. I remember it was around the 17th as well. So, and I do remember the commission did vote. Just to be clear, you have that tape. If we have to play it, do you want us to play it?
Yes.
My Vice
Well,
Mayor?
the point I'm just trying to make is that this one is I got one date to choose from, and this was for this meeting for September 18th. Didn't get a couple dates. Usually the commissioner gets a couple dates to choose from. And the reason the first time that we got it, I think was in September when I got it, the reason I didn't respond is because they had the order of branding first, the dates to choose from, let's say, just as an example. They had 3 dates to choose for branding, which happens to be the first one. And I brought it to your attention that I objected to that. That's why I didn't give a date on it until we know for sure.
Right.
And then this one, I got it on Monday telling me that it's the 18th. So you already made the decision for the 18th without asking me if I'm ready.
Did you express that you weren't available on the 18th?
I told her that I had problems with the 18th, that I had work, and she asked me if I was finally going to attend, and I made the decision yesterday that, like I said, I take being a commissioner very seriously. Unless I'm very sick, I'm not going to work. And most of the time, if I have dates ahead of time, as an owner of a company, I can make my schedule.
Sure.
Where I can do it. I think that's what I'm objecting to, that it seemed like a date of the 18th was already picked before it got to me. Again, it seems like I'm the last one that's being contacted every single time.
With
I know the dates.
with all the
Everyone was
respect,
contacted on the same emails, so.
Well,
with all due respect, if we, and rather than making an accusation, did you send the emails to every single commissioner at the same time?
To everyone
Okay,
on
so
Monday.
that's not accurate.
Yes. And I spoke directly with the Vice Mayor Samaria on Monday evening about the same time that I spoke with
Well,
Commissioner Wise.
If we may, because we have
He
limited
called
time.
me back.
Yep.
Yeah.
and
So
I
he knew.
said that the 8th is a problem. It's a problem for me. to be here.
If I may, I think the problem is in communication, and in the future, Commissioner Samara, if you express that you're unavailable, I'm certain that Roseanne would advise Manager Manners, and different dates would be offered. But there was nothing mandatory or set in stone about this date. It was a request to see if we were available. I expressed my limited availability, and I appreciate you making the meeting earlier to accommodate. I think in the future that the same deference would be given to you, Commissioner Samara. You just need to express those opinions, and I suggest you do so in writing so that you have a record of that before you accuse people of setting dates and excluding you from scheduling conversations. If we could move on, Mayor Trutman.
You know, Commissioner Weiss, why do you have to be so disrespectful and have to jump in everything?
I'm not being disrespectful. I'm being
you're not-
direct.
excuse me,
No, you don't
but,
need to be
excuse me, with all due respect, if you want the floor, please ask for it. In the meantime, we're going to move on, because we do have a lot to go tonight, and I don't want to spend it on dates and times for meetings. So with that, Attorney Rodriguez, if you would continue, please.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last thing that you said.
Would you go ahead and go through the items, and we'll go through it one at a time, and Vice Mayor, you'll have an opportunity to read them. I know I read everything, so it didn't take but a few minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, so if the commission is in agreement, I'll just go through them in the order that they're presented here. They're for discussion. The first is governing rules and amendments. So currently the village defers to Robert's rules. If your procedures are silent, you seem to be very comfortable with that. With some other municipalities use Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure. But I think the village is comfortable with Robert's rules. So that's what's here now.
No, just to be sure on the workshop, we can have a consensus without a vote, correct? To see if we agree to that.
Right. This is to have discussion on
I just want to
items.
make sure I'm
Yeah,
clear.
we can't take action. We can't vote on anything.
That's why I want to.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, this is for feedback about what would work, what would not.
Does the body have agreement that Robert's rules we can continue with?
I'm comfortable with that.
Have we been following Robert's rules? We haven't? Okay, no, I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
for
'cause I
years
wasn't
more.
sure. We have? No.
What I call the modified version, yes.
No, I want
Yeah, the
to,
Biscayne
Yeah,
Park
that's like
version of
the-
Robert's rules.
Right.
I would like to continue the Robert's.
With
Okay.
Robert's rules?
Yes.
All right. Next one.
Oh, let me just ask a question, what page are you on?
Next.
The cover
first
page.
page of the memorandum.
Thank you.
Did you see it?
Okay, so
I'll have them find it.
Thank you. Right here.
okay.
Second tab.
Second tab.
The presiding, the next section is presiding officer. This is, I think most of this proposed language is from the county version. So the presiding officer is the individual that presides over the proceedings. It's the mayor if the mayor is present. If the mayor is not present, it's the vice mayor. And if the mayor and the vice mayor are both absent for some reason, the remaining 3 commissioners would vote as to who would temporarily serve as the presiding officer for purposes of that meeting.
That's pretty standard. Any objection?
None.
None.
No objection to that.
Next.
Okay, village manager, I didn't know, a lot of these things are placeholders and it just says for discussion. So village manager, I have that the village manager shall be available to the commission at all meetings. I don't know if there's any rules of procedure the commission wants to bounce around about the manager.
No,
meetings?
No.
Because I think that it's, in a way, and I agree, it is the responsibility of the commissioner to meet with the village manager to express, so I have no problem with that.
The only thing I would ask is that things happen in people's lives, and there can be reasons why this could happen, but that can be an internal discussion. But I have no problem with our current manager makes himself available 24/7, so I think we're rather fortunate the way that's happening.
Okay, and
You want to be just overall, what is that?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen in many other cities like acting manager or acting village clerk.
Yeah, that
So-
might be advantageous in case something
The
happens.
village manager or
Okay.
His
And I think
acting
available is
designee-
sufficiently broad
Yeah.
to attend via WebEx or telephone.
I'm sorry?
Available is a nice.
I'm
No.
sorry.
you don't-
I'm sorry.
Hold on. I know this is only workshop, but just to make sure, I'm going to do commissioner-wise, then vice mayor.
I was just saying, in addition, if we want to include the manager's designee, and the word available is flexible enough to comprehend attendance via WebEx or telephone, should attendance in person be impossible? So that a meeting can move forward, but we feel that you are available for us for questions and.
Well, so far, I've not missed any meetings, so.
I'm not concerned about you. This is a future
I
thing.
could always
yes.
get hit by a bus, but.
No, thank
for
you.
the future.
This is allowing you to take meetings from Tahiti, just so you know.
We'll consider that, absolutely.
Okay. Formally, vice mayor is joking. I'm sorry, commissioner is joking. Vice mayor, you're next.
No,
Go ahead.
I think that, I was asking if you had an assistant, because if you have it, like assistant city manager.
No.
That would be, so if you're not here, who will be the person that?
His designate, whoever he designates.
Whoever I designate, yeah.
Okay.
I would have to
So could we
brief
put that in
whoever
there?
that person, I would have to brief them in so that they know, what's going on with that agenda and those items.
Yeah, so could we put that in there, that you designate?
We all agree
Yeah.
to that. We just
Yeah,
agreed to
yeah,
that.
His designee, I think, is.
Do you want a procedural mechanism as to notifying the commission with a memo?
I'm sorry,
or
I'm going to
something?
ask you again. You're quiet.
Sorry.
little boy.
Do we want any kind of procedural language if someone is being designated for purposes of a meeting? Do you want a memo for that in the agenda materials, or do you think that's hyper-technical?
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, there should be some notification.
Some notification. I wouldn't be specific on the kind of notification. I think it should be in writing, some written notification.
Yeah.
I think that's sufficient. Is that broadly enough without a problem
An
for you?
email would suffice?
An email would suffice, yes.
And that's written notification to the commission, or is that posted
Yes.
to the public? I'm asking.
It would be a written notification to the commission, I believe.
Right,
Yes.
but I would publish it as well in the interest of transparency.
Do we want to
Included
require
in the
that
agenda.
to limit? I mean, I'm asking,
Do we want to what? I'm sorry.
require that publication or announcement? Can we announce it at
I
the
think
meeting?
it
Because
might-
what happened if it happened, he got in an accident? Forgive me, but if he got in an accident and there was notification, I just don't want to tie it too
I
tight
see.
here.
If it's I see what you, because what if it's an HR?
Right.
Yeah.
They usually just say that part of
I have a question. You're going to be doing this anyway. Would you mind coming up and we'll get you a mic? Would you object to
We have
that,
an
sir?
empty seat at the dais. Come join us.
No, come on up, come on up.
Come on up, Chief.
Just because that way the audience can see you when it's recorded, and plus you'll have a
Yeah,
microphone,
and-
so your comments won't be lost.
Yeah, and I know the chief has.
If there's no
input
objection
on
from my
this
fellow
stuff,
commissioners.
too.
Okay. Right there, Chief.
Hot seat.
Okay, so you were saying, Chief, as soon as you get a mic, you want to just borrow Commissioner Wise's mic for a minute, or somebody else? Yeah.
Madam Attorney, in other places, what we see is by putting designee covers, and they inform the commission, they usually to the public, it's not an issue.
What we could do is we could say that it needs to be reflected in the minutes. The clerk will have to reflect in the minutes that it does.
That's perfect? Yes? Okay, we're all in agreement on that. Next. See, we'll do one at a time. It's gonna go through.
No, I like it
You'll be
better.
fine. Yep.
Just caught me by surprise, because I remember your agenda item was 1,000 pages the last time.
That's what I tried to, because, yeah.
She took the whole thing in, and she
Well, this is
condensed
easier to
it.
work
No,
with.
it is, but when I
Yeah, and it
when you
keeps us-
first did it, I was thinking we're going to have 1,000 pages.
No, it's not that big. It took me a very few minutes to read it. Go ahead.
Okay, so if there's no other comments on, or comments on the village manager, we can move on to village clerk?
Yep.
Okay, so the village clerk shall be available to the commission at all meetings and workshops. I didn't put that for the manager because I don't know if the manager attends all workshops, but I believe the clerk does. So if how has the village been handling that? That's the question.
Well-
I've attended all workshops.
Do you want that language in manager?
Mhm.
The manager
Yes, the
section?
village clerk
Okay.
or the acting village.
And I think there should also be a designee point as well, in the similar way we had it to the other one. I think you should do the same wordage on that. Does everybody agree?
Yes.
And notified and reflected in the minutes the same way. Okay, next, village attorney.
Okay. The village attorney shall be available to the commission at all meetings. I didn't put workshops. I don't attend all the workshops, but we could put something like, if requested by the manager or the commission, But attendance at workshops, obviously, I don't attend all the workshops. So what does the commission think about the first sentence?
I like that. I like if upon request of manager or commission. Unless you got, well, I think that's legitimate.
Well, it says requested by the presiding officer. Shouldn't it be
No, that's the parliamentary. Just read it carefully. That sentence is not related to that.
requested by
The first sentence is about attendance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right now I only have all meetings. I don't know if you wanted language about to require the attorney to attend workshops if the manager or the commission requests.
Yes, I think that would be appropriate.
That's fine. Or, I mean, if you
Sure,
want
now-
to, leave it more broad, we could just say, or at any time as requested by the commission or the manager. And then we don't have to name the events as meetings or workshops. It leaves it a little more flexible if we decide to have a dance party and we require your presence.
Anybody else have feedback on?
Sorry. just trying to make the meetings fun.
I would come for free.
This is just my
Okay.
ideal village.
No
We have dance parties.
Okay.
I believe the manager is down, as the kids say.
Okay, we're going to continue on.
Sorry.
Commissioner Wise, thank you for
Sorry.
making us smile. Okay, the next sentence. Go ahead.
When requested by the presiding officer, the village attorney shall act as parliamentarian and shall advise and assist the presiding officer in matters of parliamentary law. You already kind of do this. This defers to Robert's rules. It's just to advise regarding the procedures and how the meetings are conducted. It's already my job, but I don't know if that language was that language is from somewhere. One of the samples we were working with the last meeting.
I'm going to make a comment here because this happened in one of the meetings. I didn't speak to you about this, but we don't have that in our rules now. And I do believe having the village attorney as a parliamentarian when asked is appropriate. I think that has enough flexibility, but also allows us to, I mean, we're doing that now anyway.
Right.
But I think codifying that would be a good thing. I think there's nothing negative in that. It also allows us to not get in trouble as a commission, as a body, now and in the future. For other commissioners who may or may not have that legal expertise, I think it's a very smart thing to do. I really do. It's basically creating a legal buffer for us. I don't see any downside to it.
No, I agree with that. The problem is with this is that it's going to add more money to the village. And we have a certain amount of money that we're supposed to spend. So
Which part?
No, this is just for the commission meetings. She's here.
The attorney would be present anyway.
Okay, yeah, for the commission.
Yeah, this just basically puts in writing what her role, what she's
Right.
currently doing. It's like with Robert's rules, it's actually codifying that she's the parliamentarian.
Right now, I'm the parliamentarian.
Right.
Okay, I don't, as the mayor with that authority now, I'm telling you, I don't think that's a good idea. I think the legal authority should lie with the attorney. I'm telling you, the power right now sits in this chair. And it's almost too much power. I don't think there's a balance. I think it's appropriate to have an attorney do that.
Well, and the good thing about having the village attorney act as parliamentarian is if any of the commissioners up here, mayor, vice mayor, or commissioner, is coloring outside the lines when it comes to Robert's rules, you have an outside party who's going to identify that that's a violation of...
Who understands the law and the
Yes.
rules. And most of us sitting up here are part-time. This is not a full-time, this is not the Congress, so we're not always versed as much. I'm not always versed as much, and I'm sure many of us are not. So if we make a mistake, it allows for that correction. And I think that would really go a long way to also support the public's seeing of how these meetings are run. I just think it's a good thing.
There's going to be a lot of times during this workshop where it's like, well, we're already doing that. Yeah, but it's not in your code.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of this.
I mean, I'm doing that now with you pretty much, but
All right, I'm comfortable with that.
are we comfortable? Yes?
Yep.
Yeah.
If you're not, please state why not.
I'm just
You would rather be with the presiding officer? Because there's only two choices, the attorney or the presiding officer.
Just in the past, basically, the attorney has been at the commission meeting to not just sit there, I don't mean that disrespectful, basically just to sit there and doesn't get involved in how the meetings are run.
Okay, but I'm going to give you an example. I'm a ogre, I'm an awful mayor, and I decide my rule applies. There's no way to balance that. What I'm telling you is, as the person presiding officer, I don't think it's a good idea to have that power residing with one person. I think having a legal authority to do that is better for the village overall. That's just I just don't see a downside to it.
Yeah, because I mean, worst case scenario, if the person who's running the meeting also is basically the referee as well,
Right.
They're
That's
not
a good word.
they're not calling a foul on themselves. They, you run the risk of them saying, "Oh, you're violating right for point of order," and going everywhere when they themselves may need to be reined in. And so that kind of allows, from a procedural standpoint, an outside individual, a party who's not one of the commissioners, to basically, who has a legal background, to understanding Robert's rules, to be able to point out,
So for most of us are in consensus with this, and we'll move on to the
Yes.
next one?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Sergeant Norms.
Okay. I'm going to read what's here, and then I'm going to turn it over to the chief, because I know we've talked about this, and I'd like the commission to hear your input on this item. The chief of police for the village police department or such other village official, employee, or other officer as the commission may designate shall be the sergeant at arms at commission meetings. The sergeant at arms shall carry out all orders and instructions given by the presiding officer for the purpose of maintaining order and decorum at the meetings.
Before the chief jumps in, I want to make a point here. I do not want to put our chief of police in the position of being the sergeant of arms.
I agree.
And I think that's
Agreed.
a
Yeah, I
conflict
agree.
there.
Yeah, so myself and the attorney were able to kind of discuss a lot of these issues, and then some technical issues relating to
I'm sorry, Chief, would you be so kind? I know you carry voice.
I apologize. To the laws and ordinance, because once this is adopted, we have to adopt some ordinances that give it the ability for the sergeant of arms to be able to act. Because once you say you're out of order, you're out of order. I mean, we can do that all night if he doesn't have the authority to act. So the attorney has done a phenomenal job putting this together. She's been, working with the department, and her input has been incredible. So I'm actually, it's impressive how quickly she did this. But with the sergeant of arms issue, it's the same thing, Mayor, Honorable Mayor, that you were saying, that I don't want to be judge, jury, and executioner.
I don't.
Because if I sit in that position and something, we do have to enforce something, then I'm not able to make decisions later on whether the actions were appropriate or inappropriate. So I wanted to strike that out. Let me correct myself. I want to recommend that we strike that out. And it says, officer as a commission designee. We were discussing with the attorney if it should be as the manager designee, since the authority lies with the manager, but that's no here or there, that's just a discussion.
Yeah,
The
what-
attorney and I discussed.
Yep. One of the challenges, and you and I, we've had meetings on this and discussions on this, and the attempt to how to be as fair to everybody in the public, but allow for safety and clear communication. And for me, one of the greatest challenges is as long as whoever, and it could be you sitting in this chair, any of you, if you're sitting in this chair and you have a safety issue or a conduct issue, it is, and by the way, I had nothing to do with crafting that language. Is that correct? Any of this language I did not.
No, I
craft.
think that's from the county.
County, correct, okay. And this is not something I dealt with. So I'm not looking for more power. I'm looking for direction from the commission that we all agree as a body what is acceptable, not acceptable. And if so, how do you deal with that for safety reasons? I just want to be clear on that. So I asked for the chief's guidance, the attorney's guidance, and the manager's guidance. While at this meeting, the sergeant at arms may report to me, I want it very clear that the commission has a right to override me. And I say me at this time, at this point, any presiding officer. It could be vice mayor sitting here. If vice mayor has the gavel and vice mayor removes a resident at that point, or then the rest of the commission can overturn that decision.
We do get to that when
Okay.
we get into enforcement.
Right.
On page 8, we do get into that later. That's a discussion item for tonight. I agree with the chief. The way your government is, you have a manager commission style government, and the chief reports to the manager. So if we have a sergeant at arms that reports to the chief and the chief reports to the manager, but the sergeant at arms also has to, so we need to be clear as to where the authority lies. I recommend it lie with the manager and the chief, because at least they're on the same side of your government.
And the way I meant it, just to clarify, was let's say I'm absent or the next chief after me. The manager has the ability of saying, wait a minute, Mr. Officer, Sergeant of Arms Epler has been doing an amazing job, and he may want to force, so the power should lie with the manager on the employee. That's what I was thinking.
I agree that, yeah.
That's the point. It had nothing to do with power, here.
Yeah.
Yes, when,
I concur. Does that, what does the commission feel?
I think that's, I agree. I think it should be the city manager that is who the sergeant of arms has to respond.
No, that's not what they're saying. What they're saying is that the appointee of the sergeant, and this is for the selection, correct?
Right, this part is regarding who picks who the sergeant of arms is going to be.
I'm comfortable with it being the manager.
Manager? Yeah. Everybody. Okay, next. I'm so sorry. So the next section is under regular meetings. Are there any questions regarding that?
The only one that I have is, and I mean, hopefully, I want to keep it to where it's 11 p.m. The only thing is I don't want to put a time to 11 p.m. We supposedly have items that are hopefully it doesn't get that way. We have very important, we're saying that we can't go past 11.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because I want to discuss the commission having the ability to change the date and time. I think this is a good place to have it, and extending the time taking a vote to extend the time during the meeting. I think this is an appropriate place to put that. I know we've done it in the past, just as a matter of course. When it's like, oh, we have one more item and it's 11, let's go over. What are the thoughts on adding that there?
I'd like my question to you, and I'll ask my fellow commissioners. One of the challenges, we've always had it Tuesday at 7, Tuesday at 7. Well, what happens if another commission comes up or another manager and that doesn't work for them? We now have it in an ordinance, correct? So it can be changed?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I don't understand your question.
Right now, it's in our ordinance that it's at a given time and a given date on the same month that we've always done it.
Right. That strike-through language is what your code currently says. That first part, that's what your code says. So, and it says first Tuesday of each month. So so what are you saying? You have a concern about the day Tuesday? Or?
No, there's sometimes where something happens and it won't work on a Tuesday, or it has to be done, we need to move earlier, or I just would like some flexibility, not huge amounts of flexibility, but I'd like to allow the commission to have a little flexibility on changing that date. To change
so we can put that in there, the simple majority vote to change?
We have it by resolution.
The day of the meeting? So we're saying, right now we're saying it shall be on the first Tuesday of every month. Mayor, are you suggesting that we say it shall be, in the first week of every month? Like, are you saying that you should be able to move from Tuesday to Wednesday? Like 3 years from now, is someone going to have to go and change this ordinance because it turns out Wednesday is better for everybody?
Exactly. And
that's what I think the mayor was suggesting.
I just think it's a little, I don't see us changing Tuesdays, but I would like,
yeah, nobody's there.
at the beginning of every year, we pick a selection of dates, correct? We all agree on them, correct? And if for some reason the Tuesday's July 4th meeting, we then wait an entire week to hit the next Tuesday. Well, we could end up having it on a Wednesday. I mean, I just think it's a little rigid.
You bring up a good point. I think that should be in there as well. So at the October meeting every year, you vote on your regular meeting dates. That should be in there.
And we do that.
We do that already.
We do that, but it's not in here, so I
Yeah, but
think
it's not in there. That's another.
Yeah, and I think there should be a little bit of flexibility built in, because some things happen in meetings, and we already talked about, we're not going to go over that again, but things happen sometimes and things need some flexibility. I just think we need to build something in there that allows for a little more flexibility. So let's say the next commission gets voted in and there's all new people and they want to turn the meeting at 6 o'clock. They should be able to do so.
Yeah, but isn't that what they do in the beginning when we set our dates as a commission? When we do that in the beginning of the...
Right, but right here, it says 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. It's very...
Well, okay, I know what you're saying. Could we make it, put language in there that a commission can decide at the beginning of the year or when a commission starts to set the dates,
Yeah, they
to
just-
put that in writing.
Yeah, each commissioner shall
That's-
set their, just like they have to set their own meeting procedures, they have to set their own date and time
I
for
mean,
commission
your-
meetings.
Your idea is good.
Now, the only thing I would caution is we right now in our commission, because we are all most of us are working, that most people that are living in the village work, is that it be done in an evening setting so that it's conducive to attendance. So that would be the only thing I would caution.
On that note, I mean, the sunshine
know the
law.
statute- the statute on
Right. You should really be having your meetings after 5 during the week. There's some flexibility with Saturdays, but the best practice is after 5 p.m. during the week, to encourage participation. Lunchtime meetings are discouraged. There's all kinds of attorney general opinions on that. So I like the idea of adding a scheduling requirement, so it's codified. I know you already do that as a matter of course, but that should be in here to help, because 5 years from now, it could be a totally different panel of people.
Right.
So the first regular meeting of each fiscal year, the commission shall vote on,
Or the first meeting of
No,
newly
the
sworn-
first meeting of the new
The-
sworn
Of the
attorney
newly-
gets to
It's for the
decide.
calendar year
Yeah,
that
newly
we do
sworn
the.
commission will-
Like we did in the beginning when we got sworn in, we decided that the first Tuesday,
Yeah, we agreed to.
we
Yeah.
meet the first Tuesday of each month. So put in there that basically whoever the new commission is in the beginning would decide.
as
Okay.
to, go ahead.
I'm sorry, our commission meetings, typically, we plan the dates of the commission meetings for the entire year in October.
Right, which is the beginning of your fiscal
And
year.
so, and that's when we look at it and say, okay, this particular Tuesday is a holiday, let's move it to the following week, and that's
But we
May I
only vote
say?
on it.
It's for the calendar year, not the fiscal year. When we make the plan for the year.
Right,
it's for
and
the
so usually
calendar.
by then, the new commission is already sworn in, so it's kind of a moot point, what Vice Mayor is saying, because the new commission is in by then, because they're in by December.
Okay, I'm sorry, we're doing that on the calendar year?
Yeah, we do it
Okay.
in December.
So yeah,
So
we're
this
good
would be
then.
for-
Sorry, I was.
Calendar
So,
year,
so the new
January to
commission is
December.
receiving the information, not making the decision.
No, they're making the decision.
Yes.
Yeah, this-
And then bring to the commission the first meeting, and the commission approve
And set
and
the schedule.
approve the
Both
change.
times We've had to agree to the Tuesday meetings schedule, so.
Have it in there, the first commission of the new commission, they get to decide. Because I do agree with you, some people not want it on a Tuesday, might want it on a Wednesday.
Yeah, I just think we need a little flexibility, just because I've learned over the years that some things are working and some things don't work as well. And the other option I would like is if we had the other thing I'll mention is that if you have a very packed meeting that we have to have, and it's something that we have to, there's no way, we've got a calendar fixed and there's stuff that has to happen. You are correct. We could have a much longer meeting that we have to have. We might want to say, I'm sorry for this meeting because we have so many packed. Can we move it back a half an hour? Can everybody come early? This way, we wouldn't be sitting here till 11:30 at night.
Or, as an example,
I'm sorry, hold on, did you just?
I was just going to say there does need to be an ending time that is a reasonable one, to ask anyone. I happen to be the only person sitting on this dais with young children at home, but to ask someone to stay after 11 p.m. when they have young children at home is going to have the effect of deterring younger parents in our communities from wanting to sit in this capacity, and I would argue is a bit discriminatory. I think it's proper for meetings to end at 11 p.m. for everyone concerned, not just those who need to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning to attend to the duties of life.
I also think
Commissioner
that there
Tudor.
has to be some flexibility with that. And the way we currently do it now, it's not in the, we don't have it in black and white, but typically when a meeting's running late, we'll say, hey, listen, we're going to need an extra 30 minutes. There's take a vote of the commission. Does the majority of the commission agree to extend the meeting an extra 30 minutes? I think having something like that here gives the commission that flexibility on those, what I'm hoping will be rarer occasions where we have to go past an 11 p.m. cutoff. And also if you leave it just at 11, then there may be that very important issue that we may need only an extra 10 or 15 minutes to wrap it up. And so, we don't want to all of a sudden, have somebody on the commission or in the audience saying,
Well, do you want a majority vote or a supermajority? Because really, that's what
my
they.
next question. That we can end this part with that.
Yeah.
But do you want a simple majority or a super majority? I would recommend a simple majority because this isn't that.
yeah.
I mean, if 3 commissioners are saying this time doesn't work for me or this day doesn't work for me, you wouldn't have a quorum anyway. So I think it should just require 3.
Yeah.
I think so long as I mean, if this were a situation, I'm just making a hypothetical, if that were to happen and a majority, but not me, votes for the meeting to go longer, and I have childcare I'm done at 11, I have to leave, there should not be any punishment for me having to depart.
No,
Agreed.
I
Right? I've been accused of not attending meetings because I left a half an hour early because of childcare issues, and I think it needs to be clear that in certain instances, you simply can't stay. It's just not possible. It's not because you are over it.
Well, to me, I mean, you showed up at the commission meeting because you leave early. You should not be, you don't get penalized for it, okay?
Okay, great.
And I would also encourage, I'm going to make one last statement on that. In order to encourage us to have meetings where people want to attend, we have to find a way to cut down the time. And I think that's going to come up later, but I just wanted to mention that.
Or why, like other cities do it, maybe I'm wrong, but other cities have it if they have to meet, for some strange reason, have to meet twice that month. There's no reason why we can't do that. And that might cut the time down that we're spending until 11 o'clock. But sometimes if we put stuff on the agenda, I don't want commissioners to be cut off because, we get close to 11 o'clock.
I think you should really explore not having quasi-judicial proceedings as part of a regular meeting. That's really making.
Can we address that right now? Because I think one of the problems is we get these, and it's a lot of things. It's how quickly we get the materials, which several people have mentioned. It's also making sure the meetings are not too packed. And I think that is a challenge from the manager's perspective when he's trying to get stuff done, and it's a challenge from our perspective where we want to have everybody heard. So there's a lot of things that come into play, and I think we can pause for a moment and let the village attorney get through this. But I think one of the things that the attorney had talked about was time, what order things are being given in, if they're require advertisement, because they have to get those in first, or there's a cost component. And then if items have to be postponed, how do we deal with that? So I think we should just continue on and keep that in mind as we move forward, if there's no objection.
None.
Okay. Any other conversation about regular meetings?
Mayor?
Chief?
Chief wants.
Madam Mayor, I forgot to mention, just going back with the Sergeant of Arms. Oh, I'm sorry.
The mic.
Okay.
They're special.
Yeah. There was something that we had discussed, and just for transparency, with the attorney and I, says the part says the Sergeant of Arms should carry out. It's a given though. All orders, all lawful orders.
Right.
So we wanted to add that in for future, and then it says all lawful instructions given by the presiding officer, obviously, as outlined by the ordinance or statutes or whatever we create. So that's
So that sets a standard for...
correct. It sets a standard, and it makes sure that we're saying we're acting lawful. So when we proceed and doing whatever needs to be done, it's above.
I think that's perfect.
I apologize for going
No,
back.
no,
I missed
no.
that.
I think that protects the decision of the presiding officer, the actions of the sergeant at arms, and also in the event of a commission override, which is something we're going to get to later, it protects the commission's decision to override if something ever came to that. And I just want to be clear, what we're talking about here is not directed at anybody sitting up here. This is a rule of procedure for big picture for the village. So some of these hypotheticals I'm going to raise aren't because I think any one of you is going to do anything outrageous. It's just we have to think big picture, and this will be in place hopefully for people
Never have to use it.
10 years from now, and it'll be
Yeah.
a totally different batch.
Just know that you're giving us ideas.
You're so bad tonight. Okay. She's on
I've had
a
a
roll.
really long week, and it's only Tuesday.
All righty. Special meetings and
I
emergency.
don't even know what day it is. Sorry, Wednesday.
You're just a little bit off. I'm sorry. Special meetings and emergency meetings.
Okay, so so this would make it so that the mayor or a majority of the commission members can call a special meeting. A perfect example is at this month's regular September meeting, the commission called a special meeting to tack on to the budget hearing to address the rollover vote for one of the boards. So you're already doing that. It just codifies that either the mayor or the commission can call a special commission meeting.
Here is my concern, is to make sure we're very transparent about this. I'm going to talk about a historic event I'm going to be as generic as I can. But when somebody was out of town, they called a meeting and then had a vote on that person. So here is my concern in this issue. If the commission wants to call a special meeting, it should be done at a meeting in transparency. It shouldn't be done, hey, I'm calling a meeting. Do you want one? Yeah, we're going to call it on this. I think we have to be careful that we don't break sunshine in that. So am I being clear on that? I'm
Yes.
concerned about legally making sure that that's done in a appropriate format, not just that, hey, John calls Susie, Susie says to Willie that we can do this, and
Okay. I'm seeing,
am I?
no, I'm with you. I'm seeing if that's anywhere here, if it's, are we tweaking language or are we creating new language? I think, okay, so.
Let me,
Commission
before we
calls-
do that, let me just make sure my commissioners agree with me, that, you should be able to pick up a phone call and call each other to schedule a meeting, or have a conduit, because we can't violate the law.
I don't like the idea. I think what you're just saying, having it go through the city manager and have the city manager, because the city manager...
Is that legal? If let's say Susie calls up manager X and says, I really want to call a special meeting for this reason, the easiest thing to do is to have the manager call the mayor and have the mayor call us a special meeting. That's kind of what happens now. But if that's needed, right? And you'll say, I think we need a special meeting on such. If not, it's going to be Susie calls the manager calls Johnny and I don't know, Jose, and then he's acting as a conduit. I just need to be, I just want to make sure we're not violating the law.
Yeah, it's kind of that area where you're having to get a vote from the other commissioners
Right.
to schedule the special meeting. So,
Yeah.
there is that issue about whether or not that would be considered acting as a conduit.
Right, so if you want to, like this last time, we all decided we wanted a meeting, we did it here, at another meeting.
And that's the preferred way because everyone is on notice and you're saying it in the sunshine.
But Mayor, aren't these matters, they're not substantive, they're logistics and scheduling, right? There's no content being discussed, so.
Right. The sunshine law applies to not all communications between commissioners, but commissioners regarding village business. So coordinating a meeting is kind of in between, right? It's administrative, but it's not village business, right? Because it's about setting a meeting, so it's kind of funky. The mayor has the power to call a special meeting, period, because the emergency powers sit with the mayor, and the mayor has that authority. But for the commission to call a special commission meeting, I'm more comfortable with that having to happen in the sunshine, because if it is an emergency, the mayor's going to call it anyway. And if it's not an emergency, why can't it be discussed in the sunshine at a meeting and scheduled together at a meeting?
Yeah, but the only problem I have is I don't think that the mayor should be the only one that can call a meeting. If you're saying, if it's an emergency, then yes, I'd say the mayor should be the one that calls it. But the mayor shouldn't have the only power to be the one that can call a special meeting.
Right, well, she doesn't. What
No,
we're talking
the
about now
guidance
is how can the commission call a special meeting? Like, what do we want the rule to be for any of the commissioners to call a special meeting? It sounds like, and my recommendation is, that they have to do that in the sunshine, at a regular meeting, or at an open public meeting, and then the commissioners can talk about it in the sunshine.
Because we had a potential lawsuit on that. I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to, I don't think it was merely that why I can't wait until, like you said, to the next commission meeting, unless it's an emergency. If it's an emergency, then you can go through the city manager and, then it can be done. But I don't see any reason why a commissioner should have to call. That can't wait until the next commission meeting or the commission meeting.
Right.
For the vote?
If it's an emergency, that's a whole other thing.
That's in here already.
And that's
separate.
That's the next one,
That's
right?
what I'm saying. So I
It's
don't think
separate.
it should be
But I will tell you, there are timely things where, let's say, the manager has to have a contract through. We had an example of that with the hurricane. That's in a situation where the manager says, I really need you to do this, and so I called a meeting. I called a meeting on behalf of the manager who needed a contract through. So there are other situations that are timely, not necessarily what you would call an emergency, per se, like a hurricane.
I understand.
Okay, and some of this language is like straight from the county, so it doesn't apply. The numbers of commissioners. So let's say that the commission agreed to schedule a special meeting 2 months from now on something. How would you want to be able to cancel that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I apologize.
Sure. So let's say the commission voted in the sunshine at a at an open public meeting to have a special commission meeting separate from a regular down the road at a date certain. And then later on, they want to cancel it. Maybe the issue's moot, right? This procedure would require a resolution or motion with a simple majority vote to cancel. So the same procedure to create the meeting, the commission would have to do that to cancel the meeting.
That seems overly onerous.
Well,
way too much.
Right, but meeting cancellations are sensitive in this jurisdiction, so I think there needs to be some procedure codified as to what is required. I'm not saying it has to be this is from the county, but it's for discussion, and
Can we allow the manager to do that? Because if there's a situation where, let's say we had a hurricane coming, we all agreed to have a special meeting, and I'm giving a hardcore example just to make it concrete, and then suddenly the hurricane moves away and this is no longer an emergency meeting to have that contract. Surely we all agreed to it, but it's not necessary now. We're wasting money to have a special meeting when a week later we're going to have one. So wouldn't the manager be able to say, but is that polling? See, that's the other thing. Is that a poll?
Well, then you run into the whole debate that was coming up about an earlier meeting that we had this year that was highly discussed. But this addresses specifically to that, because then one thing that you run the risk of is, is the manager acting as a conduit, and then, do we want to put that kind of pressure and scrutiny onto the manager? I don't know if I want him being tossed under the bus because some commissioners need to change. So I think somehow we should.
The only problem is that you have to have a meeting to cancel the meeting. That seems
that's what
utterly silly.
That's what I want to talk about, because your Citizens Bill of Rights, as to the reason, simply says a meeting can be canceled for good cause. That's it, good cause, which is very vague and subjective, and I think is fine. But then, that's the reason. What's the procedure? We don't have one. And I think it's very important that the commission consider how you want meetings to be canceled, not just special, but regular, because it's going to protect a potential future cancellation down the road and give a roadmap.
So
how to
can
do it
I propose,
correctly.
Mayor, that meetings will be canceled with 72 hours notice unless exigent circumstances? And I do think that there needs to be some flexible bucket, because people's parents fall ill. Things happen. You are flying home and your flight is canceled. There has to be some sort of flexible mechanism by which the manager can reach out and say, I have learned that we do not have the people we need for this meeting. I am canceling or rescheduling it.
I think the only two people who can lie in, if I'm not incorrect here, would either be me or the manager, and I don't think it's appropriate to be, when I say me, meaning the presiding officer, I don't think it's appropriate to have it with the presiding officer, because then you have a conflict if the other commissioners don't agree with you. I think the best thing to have it is to the manager, allow the manager to, and it's not a cancellation, let's be clear. There's a difference between a cancellation and a rescheduled meeting. And I think that is a very different piece here. And if it has to be rescheduled for whatever reasons, it can be a number of reasons. It can be legal reasons, it can be timing reasons, it can be attendance reasons. But we have to be careful here, because we don't want the manager being also in the position of saying, hey, the mayor couldn't be here, so let's change the date because I need that vote. You got to be careful here so you're not doing that either. So I think there should be some maybe restrictions on that, where it's specific to a legal issue or something. Am I making sense? So that there's some, it's not a free-for-all power. It's a reasonable power, whether there's an attorney representation issue, whether there's, I'm trying to think of other reasons that might occur. Something happened functionally, staff, so you're not prepared for what had to happen, and you just need another week to do it. It's a timing issue. I don't think. I think it's a rare application and a rare use, but I do think we have to have somebody to be able to do it.
Well, since it is such a rare occurrence, it should be, and it usually is such a rare occurrence, would it be possible to even, say there's a meeting scheduled for Thursday, and, a majority 3 of the 5 commissioners are unable to attend? Would it be an issue to have, even if it's a commissioner who is available at that time to come here and basically adjourn the meeting
Right.
because there's no quorum. And basically that's...
Okay, so but you have a quorum as one, and you're solving the quorum problem. What you're not solving is if there's a legal issue that's pertinent, if there is, let's say, Attorney Rodriguez had an emergency. You're a parent. You have a child, yes. And so, let's say you had an emergency situation where she couldn't attend. She would then technically we've moved to a single firm, and she's the only attorney we have on 10 years from now. She's done so successful. She's got her own firm, and she's the only one here, and no one else can attend. Do you really want to hold a meeting without an attorney? That's inappropriate. So the manager might say, let's reschedule that meeting. I think we have to have that flexibility. We are not the Congress of the United States.
But you can do that. But you can do that at the event. There's no reason why, as I proposed about the cancellation of the last meeting, is that they show up. You can say it at the commission meeting, the night of the thing. You know, we schedule a commission meeting. You have to show up. You take the votes, and then you can decide to cancel the meeting by the majority of the people there.
What if there's no majority?
Well, then the person that comes in, the clerk takes the roll call and says there's not a majority. If you don't have a majority, then of course the meeting is canceled. You have to have 3 people at a meeting.
But then you still have to have them to reschedule, and you can't reschedule because nobody's there.
That's not a problem, but that's done in sunshine.
Well-
You can reschedule in sunshine. To me, everything has to be done in sunshine.
So I have something for everyone to chew on a little bit, and then I have a question. So this conversation so far has been all about the commission and village officials, but think about how the residents are very opinionated in this jurisdiction, which is their right, and imagine if there was something noticed and the manager knew for 3-4 days that there wasn't going to be a quorum and didn't
Exactly.
say anything, and the residents show up, the resident left
They're
for
gonna be
firm,
mad.
They're going to be furious. So, that has to be weighed as well. We've been talking about this issue with respect to the commission, but remember, there's residents who are at every meeting and make a point to show up at every meeting because they care. So keep that in mind. That's just something to...
May I build on your point? Also, as fiduciaries for this village, there's an expense associated with calling a meeting. If a lawyer shows up and then leaves, that lawyer is still entitled to bill for his or her time. So if we know in advance that their meeting is going to be canceled for lack of attendance, for the Herald didn't publish the notification that was supposed to be published, to make the meeting properly
wrong.
noticed,
Right,
or there was a mistake. There's a million reasons. If we hold the meeting anyway, then we incur all of that expense. We anger people who show up. Maybe I do recall one resident said that they flew back from out of town for work to attend the meeting to find out if it was canceled. That person would have flown back from work to attend a meeting that was canceled anyway 5 minutes after he or she arrived. There is no functional difference. So I think to a certain extent, we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. We just need to put something on paper and notice everyone that is how it is going to go forward.
And I think...
Doesn't it
Sorry.
say
Sorry, I'm respectfully requesting one person, so who would like to speak
Doesn't it
first?
say in the charter that only the commission is the only one that can cancel the meeting? So if you're doing this, then you're changing the charter.
Let's go to it.
Yeah, while she's doing that, I always think worst case scenario.
I'm sorry, just
Oh,
pick me up.
yeah. Always think worst case scenario because I know, and this might surprise all y'all, I won't be a commissioner my entire life.
Oh my God.
So at some point in time, there's going to be an entirely different group up here, and I know how the park has been historically, and I'm just thinking, what if you had, a majority of commissioners, 4 commissioners up here who were completely rogue, and you had the one commissioner who, let's say I'm still here and Commissioner Tudor has his policy and procedures, and the 4 are like, we are not going to discuss that. And so the meetings are getting postponed or canceled by the manager. There needs to be some type of documentation of why the meeting was canceled, something that, because, whether it's required that, if a commissioner is unable to attend, that it be provided in writing and that email be read at the next commission meeting. Something has to be documented.
So you have no objection to doing it as long as there's a documentation portion of it?
Yeah, for me, it's about
Accountability.
yes, and that is part about being transparent because, and I think not just with, and we'll get to that probably later, but not even just with cancellation of meetings, but if a commissioner is unable to attend, I think
So
if we do it with the boards, I think that should be there.
well, I do think that you can say a commissioner was able to attend, but I don't think, and this is what I want to be very careful on, I think we did it wrong with the boards. I don't think that every time a personal matter comes up, you should have to disclose that. You can say I cannot attend because there's rules that say after 3 meetings you haven't attended, you're no longer a viable commissioner. So I think we already have rules in place to account for that. So I don't think we did it right with the boards. I thought it was overly zealot then. I don't think it was correct. I thought it was overkill. I think the same thing applies here. But I also, let me just finish what I'm saying, please.
No, it's okay.
What I think would work is if the manager did it and disclosed the reasons for it. The only exception I'm concerned about, if there was a legal issue that occurred, there would have to be generic language to protect the village.
Yeah, if there's legal, if there's health-related, HIPAA-related
Right.
issues. I
Right.
mean,
So, but I do think a general disclosure would be fine, and I think that's it. Would you have? And then I'm going to pass it to Vice Mayor. Do you have any? I want you to comment because ultimately, this is something that will impact you.
No, I'm happy with whatever the commission directs on this, so.
Your idea about giving a reason why, yes, I agree with it, but it should also be timing. Let's say within 72 hours, to where it gives the resident enough time to know that there was a legitimate reason. Because I don't think the problem is if cancel. It's just that if there's a legitimate reason where commissioners can't make it. But if we're going to have quorum, because you're going to know when you talk to each of them individuals whether or not we're going to have quorum. I always get that word mixed up, quorum. But if we know for sure that 3 commissioners, 4 commissioners, I don't have a problem as long as we do it reason, like you said, in writing. What the reason is, you don't have to go into the exact, reason, but it has to also be done in a time frame. I think the time frame is very important. It can't be done canceling 24 hours.
Can we make it 48? I'm just suggesting that only because, and I'll have the clerk help me with this. The exception, I think there should be an exception here, and I just want to be clear. If we've advertised and we paid for advertisement and we're going to cancel it and there's a cost, that is my only concern in this. And I don't know how to handle that, so I'm going to defer to the attorney.
So I think we need to go back, because the first thing we need to decide is who's going to have the authority to cancel meetings. We haven't answered that yet.
Yeah. Does everybody agree? The manager?
Manager? Everyone agrees?
Manager.
According to our charter, it says the commission can.
Well, here,
That's what it says.
Hold on.
I'm going to read to you what you currently have. What you currently have regarding meetings is Section 216 of your code, which says the meeting time may be changed by resolution if approved by majority of the commission. It doesn't address cancellations. So we need to... One, I would like your code to say who has the authority to cancel, because it doesn't say that right now. And I would hesitate as to recommending a deadline, because things do happen, and some of them may have nothing to do with the individuals here. But what if, God forbid, the log cabin gets termites? And there's nowhere to host the meeting. There should be some authority sitting with someone in the village to use their discretion to cancel a meeting as issues arise. And right now, you don't have that codified.
And if we put the reasons out there, I think that might address the vice mayor's concern and some of the other residents' concern that we're being transparent as to why. So that way, the manager didn't do it for some extraneous reason, and then he'd be held accountable for it. So I think that kind of builds that in. Do we all in concurrence at this point? So we can move on to the next point. Are we in concurrence?
Yep, sure. So you're suggesting that the manager can cancel a meeting for any or at any time, so long as the reasons for the cancellation or rescheduling of that meeting are shared at the following meeting and or publicly posted. And that sort of prevents the manager from canceling a meeting to go to a dance party, just to... Right, but keeps him from being boxed in if something happens at the last minute, if there's a fire at the log cabin, if we all meet to celebrate somebody's birthday and get food poisoning in the village hall. I'm just coming up with the reasons why maybe everybody would be down for the count, but then there's that eases the time concern
right.
you
I
had.
think there needs to be some language giving discretion, because we can't think of every possible scenario that might warrant a cancellation. That's I think
or a reschedule. I want to make sure we're clear on that. Or a reschedule.
correct.
Yep.
So, okay.
We're good.
And maybe that's where the authorization should be. It's not that I can cancel a meeting, but I can reschedule a meeting. Should that, I mean, it's
The
a
only,
fine point
I
there,
would
but-
have both, and I'll tell you why. We have a special meeting, it's all planned, we're all coming, and then a week later, there's another meeting. There's no time between it. So you can't reschedule. So I would be careful about that. I would leave it generic enough.
Okay.
So with respect to transparency then, with since the authority is going to sit with the manager and the manager is going to have the discretion to cancel or reschedule a meeting, do we want to have some sort of procedural requirement to not necessarily disclose the specific reasons in the sunshine, but the availability or unavailability, if that's an issue, in some sort of memo in the next meeting or something like that?
I think the reason there was no quorum, there was a legal matter that prevented the meeting. Whatever it is, there should be something that states it in a transparent way. But at the same time protects the village, because not everything can be disclosed, unfortunately.
Right, and I think, notice of unavailability, it should be sufficient language, because people do go through things that they don't want in an agenda on the internet.
I have no problem with that, except for if a city manager cancels a meeting, I think the commissioners need to know why the meeting was canceled. Doesn't mean it have to be made public, because I don't, at certain time, I think the residents have a right to know when meetings are canceled, but I think the commissioners need to know.
Well, that's, okay, so,
I think and then you can disclose at the next commission meeting to the public why it was done. I think it should be done to the commissioners before.
I would recommend, because this isn't just about commissions, also about staff, and let's say the manager knows someone suffered a miscarriage that day, and they can't make the meeting. I don't think that should be anywhere. I think unavailability should be sufficient, right? And I don't think any other commissioner would be entitled to know that.
Absolutely.
Doesn't it? No, you have to give the. So we're saying that we're going to, and I hope that never happens, but that we're going to cancel a meeting because this is going to come out wrong, and I apologize to all your mothers, that because a person has a miscarriage, that we ain't going to have a commission meeting because that person can't attend.
If that person was your village manager or your village attorney?
No.
That's what I'm saying, because you may have to cancel because one of the village officials can't attend. Right. So because remember this, we don't know the reason of this made-up cancellation or rescheduling. This is
okay. She was referring to a HIPAA violation.
Right.
Right. And there does need to be some vagueness to it, because I don't want to announce, the commission. This commission meeting was canceled because Commissioner Samaria had to go out of town, so his house is vacant right now. Go have a party.
No, I understand that,
that sort of thing. We do want to have.
But it's not going to be canceled because one individual can't make it. If we have quorum, the meeting still goes on.
That's different, right?
But say I already know that two people can't, and then Commissioner Samaria gets called out of town, so then we no longer have a quorum at that point.
Do you want him to announce that your house is vacant? I mean, that's his point.
I think unavailability should be. I think there should be a memo required to the commission at the next regularly scheduled meeting, with the manager explaining if it was quorum related. I would receive notification that the following commissioners were unavailable for that date.
That's it. Period.
That's it.
Done.
And list the commissioners that told the manager that they were unavailable. And then it's like, okay, we wouldn't have had a quorum. They all contacted the manager, and and maybe.
And I'll give you an example. It got so crazy this last time that I actually had people following me at my house, and I was home, but I couldn't go to the meeting. I'm not going to disclose why, because it was personal, and I actually had people wanting to know what I was doing. That's how I think sometimes our residents have. There's a right to know, and then there's a right to be silly, and I think in some instances this gets carried away, and I think we have to be cognizant of that as well. So I appreciate your the need to sometimes be not totally, and it's up to the commissioner. Maybe the commissioner wants to disclose it. Maybe the commissioner does not. It depends.
So are we in agreement about the memo requirement?
Yes.
For the next meeting. So it's.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Next.
Okay. The rest of the language in this section. This language is from the county. So.
Yeah, I think you had 7 signatures, and so you have to clean that up.
Stuff.
Yeah, you'll clean that all up.
Not applicable here. Yeah. Since you're a small jurisdiction, if something is canceled within 24 hours of the meeting because something came up, I would recommend some sort of posting requirement so so the people, when they come, they know that.
Posting
Maybe
an
on the
e-blast,
website or something like that.
posting website, e-blast.
Doors,
Well, at least
something.
posting a whatever would be normally. Website and
doors,
posting, yeah.
everywhere we normally post to
Whatever you
announce.
normally would do, yeah. Agreed? Do we all agree on that? It's a simple call.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next.
Okay, this is emergency meetings. We kind of tapped into this a little bit already. Village mayor may call a commission meeting whenever, in his or her opinion, an emergency exists, which requires the immediate action of by the commission. Whenever such emergency meeting is called, the village mayor shall notify the clerk. And the clerk will be charged with contacting all the other commissioners.
Now, there's some state statute, if I'm not mistaken, that also waives the 24 if it was like a Cat 5, and, I mean, there's some,
Right. Once you have once you're in a state of
powers.
emergency,
That all-
emergency powers is a whole other.
I just wanted to mention, announce that to everybody here so they understood that.
Yes. And if anyone's interested in me forwarding that to them, I can. I have all that available since we had a fire drill with Hurricane Dorian. So
And thank you for doing such an outstanding job on that.
thank all of you, Chief, Christian. Thank you. Thank everybody.
Everybody.
So. I mean, that's pretty standard language. I don't know if there's any feedback. Emergencies are special, so.
I think that's all fine.
That's fine. The county lawyers did a good job.
That's why I was like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to go through them one by one and see what works for the village and what doesn't. Okay. Then moving on to notice to commissioners. I would like some feedback from the commission on this, because this has to do with a special emergency meeting being called, but staff is unable to get in touch with all the commissioners.
Yeah, this is tricky because
This is tricky, and I wanted to bring this to, for discussion.
I think there should be a requirement that an email at least has made the attempt to go out, and a phone call, because at that point I don't have a problem with this, because if somebody's a commissioner and let's say there's a commissioner who's less than stellar, and down in the future, and that's nobody sitting up here, and they decide they won't respond to an email, et cetera, I think then that would be okay. But I think without that attempt, you have an end around. So I could decide that I don't like Commissioner Wise. I'm going to call it. I know they're out of town, and it's an end around. I just think we need to be careful of that in the future. So because of that, I would like to see that at least there's some attempt at contact, and then it's legal.
Okay, so what it currently states is that the minutes for the meeting have to reflect how those efforts, what the efforts were to contact.
Yep. Yes, because let's say Commissioner Tudor decides to go to I don't know, to do an Appalachian Mountain Trail, and he told everybody he's going on vacation. He's not here. We couldn't get a hold of him. We knew he wasn't going to be here, but then this happened and we had to hold a meeting. It shouldn't affect the legality of it.
The clerk would still be required to try to get a hold of them.
Right.
Because
Attempt. Right.
vacations get canceled, right?
Right.
So
there'd be the attempt, but if it didn't work, it wouldn't affect the legality of the meeting.
Right, and
Forgive
that
me
would
for
have to
making
be
you on
in
a mountain vacation there.
Yeah.
and that would have to be disclosed in the minutes.
Yes. Yes. Agreed. Is it agreed?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next.
This next provision is a provision for waiver. This is a unanimous waiver requirement. So if any of these special or emergency procedures are not followed, the commission can override it if the entire membership, a majority of the entire membership votes to waive it. So I've seen it done as a unanimous vote to waive, a supermajority vote to waive, a simple majority vote to waive. So I'm putting that before the commission because I think it's important that the commission have a procedure to deviate from the procedures because things come up. So
Supermajority might be a more reasonable,
Yeah, I would
I don't
go
want a
with
simple
supermajority.
majority, but I think a supermajority. What do you think? What do you think? Supermajority. Okay. And this is another question. We use the word supermajority and 4/5 majority, so I think we need to be clear on that as well. Do we mean a 4 out of 5? If one can't attend, which means that we complete 4, how are we going to deal with that?
So my recommendation is to address that in the language as we go through it. Like this will say a supermajority of the entire membership of the commission.
That's fine.
And in other instances, you'll see of the commission members present because it's a more exigent issue. So we'll be specific as we go through. And I
Now-
think the clerk had a comment.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're talking about the supermajority. Yeah, you mentioned that has to be the supermajority of the commission present at the.
Not necessarily, it depends on how it's written. In this
Yeah.
case, it would be a supermajority of the entire commission, which means a
Entire
4, which means a 4.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I'm recommending in general that going forward as we amend not just this provision of the code, but that's something the village code we should do as we amend the code so it's clear. So any additional comments or concerns about special meetings and emergency meetings? Any issues that have come up that we should be addressing?
Yes. I'm going to give you an example of where this would become a problem, and I just want you to solve it. And it's a horrible problem, but I'm going to explain it. If we have a situation where a commissioner either resigns in the middle of a vote, if you have a situation where we had a Cat 5 storm and people are either deceased or left because they have issues, these are situations where I want an exigent circumstance. Because we need to have something in here that unless there's exigent circumstances, and I'm trying to see if I'm correct in my term, but there may be a situation where it's something we could never have fathomed, imagined. And then what then? Or we have an evacuation and only, we have to make a decision. We can't make a decision. He can't make it on his own.
Wouldn't emergency procedures override?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. I think you would go through that meeting through the emergency meeting provision of the code.
What if it's not a situation, and I'm just throwing this out there to make sure we cover everything. What if it's a situation where somebody suddenly dies? We had that happen, and one of our mayors died. And I'm just coming, and it's not an emergency situation in terms of the event, but it is in terms of we only have a 4 now. So that's.
Well, you'd still have a quorum.
But the supermajority would still have to be 4-0
No, if you put it in every.
in this case.
Yeah, what you're saying makes.
So you're talking about what would the entire membership mean if there was a vacant seat on the commission?
Yeah. Can you just clarify that in
Entire
here?
living
Sorry.
membership?
No.
Well, if there's a vacant seat,
I'm not trying to find the crack in the hole, but I knew we've had a circumstance where we were sat there with 4.
If you have a quorum and the membership at that time is only 4, because remember commissioners are elected, so there's a whole procedure, then you would
3 out of 4.
It'd be 3 out of 4.
Okay. Thank you. You clarified. I didn't mean to be nitpicky, but
No, that's what this is
It's
for.
happened.
So
It's happened
this is
before.
to protect
No, it's good
everyone.
because if you drag this meeting out anymore, I'm going to kill you. Just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Okay, public workshops.
That was a joke.
I should say the commission may. Okay, so do we want to implement a procedure for how workshops are called? And if other commissioners have to agree that a workshop should be called? Because I don't think you have anything right now that really gives a procedure for calling workshops.
We just do it
Yeah.
live in the meetings.
I think a workshop should be done at whatever the commission meeting, because I don't think there's any emergency workshop that we have to have. I think it can be done at the next commission meeting. That's where the public hears it. I like to call a workshop for a certain item.
Okay, and do we want commissioners to have the ability to unilaterally call a workshop, or do you want it to be a simple majority vote of the commission that a workshop is needed?
civil majority.
Majority.
Okay. Of commission members present?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. During a meeting. Okay.
Yeah,
I have two.
Yeah.
So, any commissioner who affirmatively votes to schedule a public workshop on an issue must attend that workshop. So I get the spirit of that. It's if three
not realistic.
commissioners said, yeah, I want to have a workshop, and they vote to have it, and then only one shows up. I mean, I get the spirit of it, but it's very strict. So I'm putting it on the, what is the commission
I think
about
it's
it?
too,
It has to be practical too.
You think it's too strict? I think it's too strict.
I do. I agree. It's too
I think
strict and
it's-
impractical.
Not with our village.
Yeah, I mean, if it was, if the workshop was can be set by a single commissioner and not by a simple majority, then I would say, yeah. If it was like a lone voice is
Right.
setting the meeting and not showing up, but the fact that two other commissioners want to have that workshop and at least, I think that's fine. I don't think we need to have it this strict.
Yeah, because I remember, when you say that, if I bring up an agenda item, it's not my agenda item once we have the workshop.
It's commission,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so two's out. It's,
Yep.
it's unnecessary. Right.
Strike it.
Agreed.
Get out of here.
Okay, and I know we all know this, but you
Yeah.
can't actually take action on anything at workshop. It's for discussion with the public. And that says that that is something that cannot be waived. Like the commission can't say, hey, I know it's just a workshop, but can we all agree that we're going to pass this resolution here? Even if it's unanimous, you can't do it. There's no waiver on that.
Okay.
Okay, we got into this a little bit. This is pretty much a discussion item. Meeting cancellation procedures. Some of it we touched on. The discretion sits with the village manager. Memo required afterward.
4 seems a bit excessive. I think as long as it's in the minutes, it is notice to the public.
Well, I think the notice to the public
Oh,
for
you mean
cancel-
on the buildings?
ahead of time.
Yeah, on the buildings, yep. Yep.
So I think we actually walked through all of this already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we
Okay,
touched
so
on
that's,
it.
well, I'll move that to here so it applies to all meetings and workshops. Because workshop attendance isn't necessarily required, but what if the manager knows that no commissioners can make it?
Yeah.
Then you can't have a workshop. So
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it should apply to workshops as well.
Okay.
What happens with the board? And
They have their own procedures in the
So,
code.
okay, just wanna
Yeah,
make sure.
This is for when the
I
commission
just want to be
meets.
clear. Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
Read
so-
the charter? Just kidding.
Excuse me.
Okay,
Raise your
so
hand if you've read the charter.
it's on TV. It's too much.
most of this agenda section is from the county commission procedures. Some of it's very hyper technical and probably unnecessary. So, and some of it accounts for a lot more staff than the village has because the county has a whole team who.
Yeah, this 4-day rule doesn't work.
That's the county's rule. I don't think
That's-
that, and I want the manager and the clerk's input on that because they prepare it.
Okay, do me a favor, explain to me this, because I as a commissioner would like to have my agenda item. I don't like to get my agenda item on if it's a Tuesday meeting, get it on a Monday, or get it on a, Saturday, or get it on a Friday. I
Vice
don't
Mayor-
have enough time to look at this stuff.
Vice Mayor, I have a question for you. There's a difference between putting a rule in place that has to happen, and then there has to be a remedy if it doesn't happen. Okay, versus ideally what we'd like. All of us would like, I'd like it a week in advance, if you don't mind. It gives me plenty of time to read it. But I think we have to be very cautious over taking a tiny little staff, and if something happens, for example, if I may, Madam Clerk was sick as a dog this week. She had a massive flu. I mean, things happen. We have one clerk, so I just think we need to be very careful about the legalities of.
Well, it's
Yeah.
it's a two-step question, right? Number one is, what do you want the deadline to be to get your agenda items to the clerk? And then after we have that answer, then okay, well then when do you think the clerk should be able to post the agenda with supporting materials by? Because they go together, right? I mean, we can't expect the clerk to post everything, let's say, because it's here 4 days ahead of time, but the commission has to get everything that they want on the agenda to her the day before, right?
I think I'd
It's a
like,
scramble.
before we talk, I would like your comments as an attorney and what you've been dealing with, the manager's opinion and the clerk's opinion, because at the end of the day, they have to carry out whatever we put here.
I'll go.
And it has to
I'll
be
go
functional.
last. I'd like to hear it.
Go ahead.
Roseanne, you want to go first? Or
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. I think that that, we all want it to get to the commission and get published as early as possible. To that end, I believe right now we're supposed to have all of the submissions from commission, is it 8 days in advance?
8 days is the resolution.
I think so. And so, and I think that would work as long as we abide by that. And if it's not there by that 8th day, then it doesn't go on this agenda. It'll go on to the next month's agenda.
So let's do the count. Let's do the count. 8 day would mean when? So if we have a meeting on a Tuesday, what day?
Business or
That would be
calendar?
I would say 8 calendar days, I think. And so, because that puts it the prior Monday, that gives us over a week. We can put together the agenda.
So the Monday
run it
before, how
before.
about what you're saying is the Monday before the Tuesday meeting is the 8 days. So we'd have to get it to you by that Monday, 5 o'clock, end of day.
Right.
The way you have it right now, it's the Wednesday or the Tuesday. So if you make it the Monday, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, I think that would be better. So
The idea.
It goes. Does that give us enough time, Roseanne? Give you enough time?
Pretty much, because after I receive the items, some of them I have to go over with the attorney also. And sometimes we need more backups. And sometimes we don't depend only on the commission or on us. The backups come from somebody else outside, So we have to keep that in mind also.
So, and there's 3 things here I would ask. It's the commission submitting their items, correct?
Mhm.
If there's a village manager or a attorney, or because there's a lot of people can submit items, so department chairs and so forth. Do you want to keep the 8 day? I'm asking the staff. Do you want to keep the 8 day rule for us only, or do you
everyone.
for everyone?
everyone.
I just
For
want to be
everyone.
clear before we.
No, the goal is to have enough time to get everything collated together in the agenda, run it through legal, so that legal has time to review it, and without spending the night there at the office, reading this, and then get it back.
Waste
in
every time.
to give, hopefully to get it published and to the commission by the Thursday prior to the Tuesday meeting.
Okay, so ideally, does anybody have an objection to that?
No.
I have no objection. I would like to offer a suggestion to Commissioner Tudor that we make a note for the communications workshop, that in order to ensure that we have robust participation from the entire commission and anyone who wants anything on an agenda, that we consider a program of push notification to remind people tomorrow is the cutoff to be on the agenda for the commission meeting on X date. That way, when we're here at the dais, no one can say, well, I didn't have time to get this in, or et cetera, et cetera. If we have a reminder that goes out regularly, then the onus is on any individual who wants any item to be heard in front of this commission to do so in a timely fashion.
You're not talking about workshop, you're talking about commission too, right? Because I think it should be, your idea is a good idea. I think it should be for commission meetings. I don't know if that would put more time consuming for the clerk. I don't think so. Send
No,
them
it
an email.
can be automated. You
Yeah,
can
automated.
you
Just
can
saying
set up an
that-
automated
Set
email
up an
push.
automated message.
Yeah.
Yes,
Please
for
get your
sure.
agenda item in by a certain time.
Can
I
you,
like-
because of my history with understanding how commissioners work, can you make sure there's 2 week before, just as a reminder, it's due this day, and then last day? I'm just suggesting it's twice, based upon most of us, if possible.
Yeah.
Not
but
required,
that's something-
not required, but
The Commissioner Tudor, that's something we could explore. What can we automate?
So, with respect to agenda item deadlines to submit to the clerk, we're saying 8 days.
yes.
Monday.
And you said 8 calendar days?
Couldn't you say the
Calendar
Monday?
days. That way.
Not business.
Okay, now,
Well, you might want to say calendar days. What if we have a meeting that's on a Wednesday?
Yeah, just,
well, one other suggestion is there may be a holiday it falls on the Monday, so you're going to have because that happens a lot.
If a holiday falls on a Monday, it would be the
This-
Tuesday.
Usually
The
we
day
postpone
before.
for the other
You wanna
week.
do it the Friday
I
before?
think it should be the Friday to be Friday before.
Right, I think it should be the Friday before, so that way it gives you guys
More
plenty.
time to be clear. So
Merry
if you submit it on Tuesday, that'd be cutting off the time. So if you make it Friday before, I think that'd be,
That'd be fair.
Okay.
So you're saying,
8 days unless there's a holiday,
and then it goes to the Friday.
it goes to the Friday before.
gives the clerk the weekend to work on it if she has to.
Do
Hopefully not a weekend, let her have a holiday.
but you can
Got it.
always bring before
Okay,
that.
so now that we've
If you have.
established
Yeah,
the deadline to
can
get
always leave.
materials to the clerk, what do we want the deadline to be to publish the agenda to the commission and to the public? I think we have to be careful here because once the agenda is finalized, those are memos to the commission from other commissioners on village business. I think that those dates should be the same.
I have a question before you do that, and don't hit me. The problem I have is we find mistakes or errors. This is just part of the nature of life, or our own mistakes. There needs to be some time frame that we are seeing it before it goes to the public. It's one of the greatest mistakes I think we made. We publish before we see it, so we can't give staff feedback if there's an issue. So my recommendation is if we're going to do the 8-day rule, what day can you get it out so that we can review it and give you feedback in case there's needed feedback along with the attorney? I think there's a second step here so that we can avoid a problem before it goes out. And if you all think I'm wrong, please jump in.
No, that makes sense. I think that the commission should see it before the public sees it.
No, I agree with
But
that.
I want to give enough time for the public to see it.
Yeah.
My question is, how much time are you looking for? Because again,
24 hours.
these would be communications about village business between members of the commission
Yeah.
that isn't in the sunshine yet. So we got
No, it'd be feedback to the manager or the clerk from each commissioner regarding, I see what you're
Yeah.
saying, because it's,
It'd have to be regarding their item.
regarding their item is one thing. That's fine. But once it's the master agenda with all supporting materials, there's memo, like, let's say Commissioner Tudor has a memo in there and all these supporting things. Once that's published to the commission, that's village business from Commissioner Tudor to the other commissioners. So we have to be really careful with dates not lining up and having that in the sunshine. I mean, technically it's being cured because it's ultimately being published, but I just want us to be careful.
tell us what we should do. If it's a bad idea legally, then just,
Like if it's published, would it be an issue if I'm proofing my own item on there and then communicate to the village clerk to say, hey, you know what, this attachment is missing a page, or I need to basically amend it. I need to add this to it and then republish it to the commission.
Right. I'm more comfortable with that. I just think it and I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but I think we need to put more back on the commissioners to proofread their stuff before they submit it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's not my issue. So if it's not my own item, not that, because what'll happen is the clerk will find an error, the manager will find an error and say, Mayor Trutman, you made a mistake here, could you fix it? What I see happening sometimes is there'll be other things on the agenda, whether it's missing or it's, something got copied wrong. It's just our way to give feedback to the clerk and to the manager if we find something that's going on. Or a legal issue that came up and I'm saying, Attorney Rodriguez, I noticed this. I know some of it has to be discussed in the sunshine, but some of it, I don't know.
Why not?
I'll step back here if you think it's a bad idea.
Is it too much work, Madam Clerk, for you to have those communications with each commissioner on their item before the master agenda goes live?
Usually, that's what
what she
happens.
does.
If I notice
That
something
cures that.
clearly wrong or something missing, or if they notice something is missing, they
Yeah, I think she already does
hurry
that.
up and tell me before it goes public.
Yeah, she's done that to me many times. So yes, she's already doing that process. But I think what work and your idea is if it's Thursday, why can't it be published Friday? 24 hours, I think, is enough.
Okay, what you're saying is there's a legal concern, and if there's a legal concern, I'm going to withdraw it. Okay? The idea was if we found mistakes. For example, if there was a photocopy, I'm not doing it. What I find is happening is sometimes there's mistakes, whether it's by staff or whether it's by other people. That mistake is being brought up either on the dais, a couple seconds before, then they're complaining that things got changed. I'm trying to avoid that process. I don't know how other cities do it, but if you could look into that and see what we could do, just to ensure that my whole point is when it goes out, it's clean.
I agree with you. I think the 8-day rule will cure a lot of that because there'll be more time for the clerk to review what's submitted, more time for me to review what's submitted.
Then I'll withdraw.
I think those issues will happen a lot less with an 8-day
Okay.
rule.
What about the 4-day rule for furnished to members of commission no later than 4 days?
So, okay, so that's for commission discussion. I mean, the residents like getting the materials they do prepare for the meetings and review it. You have Tuesday meetings, so
Thursday. 4-day would be Thursday, correct?
Yeah.
these are for business days. This is the county's 4-day rule. This is just a placeholder for the discussion, so, but what day the preceding week would be ideal for the commission to publish all the materials? Assuming it was a Tuesday meeting,
It would be,
Thursday.
I'm sorry, Mayor. As long as it goes out Friday.
Yeah.
It's Friday, Saturdays. I mean, if a resident doesn't want to take time to look over, just like as a commissioner, I have to look over the weekend. I have to take time to look at it. So I think it should be, as long as it goes out on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, not late Friday, make it Friday morning that it gets published. That's what they have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they do it Monday.
so would that be for any type of meeting or just for regular?
Any type of meeting.
Just like
right?
Friday's the day that the agendas are posted, period?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
So that
that's
would
one
be
thing
a
you
3-day
have to
rule
set.
in this case.
Yeah, you set a date, like Fridays or the date that agenda is posted, it starts to kind of
And people-
be ingrained in people, and they know
Yeah.
Friday, they don't have to do the math, or it's Friday.
Because
Okay,
we
so-
have had some residents that have said, well, it's Friday, I don't see
Fine with
anything
me.
up. It's because there was no,
Village,
says, okay, it's going to be on Friday, everything's going to be published.
Village Clerk, are you comfortable with that? You'd be the one doing it.
I'm sorry, to
Friday instead
publish
of
is
Thursday.
on Friday,
Yep.
but to provide the material, the whole agenda, is Thursday or still Friday?
Now, Thursday is for the commissioners to get it, Friday is for the...
Thursday is for the commission.
Thursday for
Okay.
the commissioners
And
and
Friday would go live.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
May I make one suggestion? Because
Right.
we are doing this as though it's always going to be on a Tuesday. You just make sure the language is clear enough so that in case somebody changes the commission meetings to Wednesday, it's now what the days are the part, not the day of the week. So it'd be
Oh, I thought it was going to be that agendas post Friday, period.
That's what I thought as well.
yes, I know, but here's
You're thinking of-
Tuesday meeting.
But-
If we don't have a Tuesday meeting, that would change.
right. So you're going to
Why? Why would it need to change?
Well, because
8-day rule.
the 8-day rule, future commission can decide.
Would then
Or we
if they
have-
did Wednesdays, it wouldn't post till
Or we may have to postpone a meeting to a Wednesday or a
Right.
Thursday.
So, for publishing to the public, what do you?
we
it
still
should
have
be-
a 3-day rule.
I think it should
3
be,
business day rule?
Yeah, or
4-day rule.
No, it's a 3 business day rule if it's a Friday, and the meeting's on Tuesday.
Should we make it just that, that it's posted Friday unless schedule changes to the meeting dictate otherwise? And then that way, at least we have a standard, as Commissioner Tudor was saying, it becomes habitual for people to look for agendas on Friday. But if there is some notice that a meeting has been moved or changed, then they'll know it's going to be up Monday, or it's going to be up Thursday, or...
Yeah,
It-
indoctrinating the Friday agenda, I think is a good thing to consider, especially since the manager's report goes out every Friday. That, that could be, by the way, there's a meeting next week, link to the agenda is here, and, talking about automation and developing systems.
I'm just saying that if 5 years from now or whatever, I guess I could change the whole ordinance, but if it was a Wednesday, they would then have to change it. But I don't care. I think that's fine. I think Friday's I think it's habitual. I think it's also very friendly, user-friendly for the residents.
So we could put a carve-out towards the end, like Commissioner Wise is saying, and who would have that discretion? The clerk, the manager? To deviate from the Friday publish, let's say something came up, the village
On a
also
Friday.
Friday afternoon, and it didn't
Right.
go live Friday.
Well, let's say, for example, we have a meeting now. That means last Friday they would have had it posted for the special meeting. I think this should be for regularly scheduled commission meetings, and for special meetings, it should follow the day rule. Because, for example, we're having a meeting on Friday. That means that you all should have had the agenda and everything published by the Friday before. So we have to be careful here on special commission meetings and other such
We can
things.
put a carve-out, well, not all special commission meetings are called, with short notice. Some of them are just scheduled far out, because they
Yeah.
require special attention. So we could say emergency meetings obviously do not apply. That should be a carve-out period.
Yeah.
Emergency. And, special commission meetings called with less than X amount of days' notice are exempted from the publishing requirements or something like that?
Or follow the 3-day, 8-day rule and make it so that it follows the rule versus the actual day of the week. I think that simplifies for special meetings. I think I would leave what we're doing now for regular scheduled commission meetings, and I think for a special commission meeting, while they'll try and do it on a Friday, I don't think it should be restrictive, because sometimes we have so much stuff going on and they've got 2 and 3 meetings coming right after each other. I think it's putting too much burden on a very small staff. I'm going to ask the staff to either agree or disagree, because if I'm wrong, well, that means last Friday you would have had to have out the meeting for this Friday.
For this Friday, that would be too early to have everything.
Right, but
Yes.
if we did a carve-out saying that she has the discretion to deviate from the deadline for good cause or something, we could...
For special commission meetings and or emergency meetings, something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
I have no problem. Anybody else? Nope. You good?
Yeah, no, there has to be something in there because, I like the idea of Friday, getting people used to Fridays. And if the new commission wants to change the day of their meetings, well, they're going to have to go over the meeting procedures anyway. They can change that Friday to a Thursday or whatever. But yeah, for special meetings or something along those lines, yeah.
Special and emergency
There
meetings,
needs to
there's
be-
yeah.
Yeah, because those fall on any day of the week.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying the 3-day rule?
3-day, 8-day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And except for emergency meetings, which doesn't apply anyway, because those are 24 hours. Those are very short notice meetings. And none of this applies to that. Is that clear? Attorney's writing all the notes. You good with that?
Yes, I'm writing that irons, because I know this is something that comes up a lot in public comments, so I wanted to spend some time on that, so thank you. Okay, so minimum standards for proposed agenda items. I have this as a placeholder for discussion. I don't know if the commission has any thoughts or interest in developing a minimum standard for proposed agenda items. I know that some residents have complained in public comment about backup materials, memos not being specific. I don't know if there's any interest in codifying something like that, so I just have it here for discussion.
Commissioner Tudor, you had some thoughts on that?
I don't know if I really have
Yeah,
any
I don't know if it's necessary.
any gut
but-
feeling, to
but
really.
I've heard residents say things about agenda items and backup and stuff like that, so it's here for discussion. Do we want, thank you.
I have a question, because I do think we need to have some standard. We've kind of created a standard, but then when the item comes forward, here's what I'd like to avoid. I'd like to avoid this dais becoming a political bantering ground versus getting village business done. So my concern is if we have an item in which they're just playing a gotcha game. They're playing I'm not going to tell you what's really on the item till we get to the night there. And I just think that's a very destructive force for the village, but I don't know how you regulate that. Do you know what I'm saying?
So we could break it, it's really two conversations, right? One is about action items, and the other is about discussion, right? So for action items, I think if the commission wants to codify a procedure for presenting action items, there should be minimum standards, like a memo that lays out the proposed action, the budgetary impact if there is one.
Background.
Just, like a minimum standard for an action item. So it's clear, and so it's clear for the residents, like, oh, well, this would cost us $3 million. It's not hidden.
Yeah.
It's clear. Supporting documentation. What would you want attached to that?
Is there other places that do that?
The problem I'm having is that with the backup, I don't want to have where a commissioner gets to look at everybody's backup and then comes to the commission and decides they don't want to give a second, and then we don't have a discussion.
But I would want to be completely prepared on each item, because I think what we have to start doing as a commission is really being a lot more procedural. And so what I would want to do in a perfect world is have it laid out that for action items, these are what's required. So that way I can already, when I have the document, I can already have an idea of where I stand on that item. I see the backup. I understand what's being said and proposed. Because ideally, what I think should be going forward with the commission is we should get into the practice of when it comes up to that item, a commissioner introduces their item, makes a motion, and if there's no second, we go into the next business item.
So, just to be clear, Commissioner Trudeau, what you're suggesting, if I'm understanding you correctly, if there isn't, if you put forth an item and there's no appetite for it, then the commission doesn't go forward. But there's kind of two thoughts on that, and I think I take Vice Mayor's Samaria's point is he wants to be able to have the discussion, but there's and I think the attorney is very clear on this. For an actionable item, and we're going to be voting on it, we have to have that material. There has to be a level of depth so we can study what we're going to do and bring forth what we want, because maybe you have a thought pattern and Commissioner Tuda has a different thought pattern and you have a different thought pattern on that item, and even though it's your item, maybe there's some other information that somebody else could bring forth. Or conversely, is if Vice Mayor has this phenomenal item and he's got it all the way done,
if everyone knew it.
right, we can move it to consent and move on, and would not waste time discussing it. And we've wasted an hour of the attorney's time and more money for the residents. Ideally, also, maybe Commissioner Tudor would like to co-sponsor your item because he thinks it's such an outstanding item, and he reaches out to the village manager and said, I'd like to co-sponsor that item. So that I now know that 2 commissioners, and you only need 1 more, want that item to go through.
But it could also be where you can stop a commissioner's agenda item by you having all the material, you can stop having that. The commissioner doesn't get a second original discussion. I think that if a commissioner is willing to put time and work into putting an agenda item, we should have a discussion. And you can make the discussion short, meaning if the commissioner's item is not that great, the commission, each of them can get. I just think that we're going to be stopping commissioners from presenting.
If I may, I think we could permit whoever the presenting commissioner is to deliver what could amount to a short opening argument.
And I have a placeholder for that later because I think that would be
3 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes to state the case, to elaborate on the recommendation and backup that was included in the memo. And if after that opening argument, for lack of a better name, if none of his or her fellow commissioners are persuaded that it is worthy of further discussion, at that point it's asked for a second, and if no second is given, then it dies. I don't think that we should spend time defending why we don't think something has merit. I think that it just opens up the door to negativity, and it wastes commission time.
I think we also have to, there's a lot of conversation about the impact of developing minimum standards for the commission, but we have to remember not to beat the sunshine law drum again, but what the residents are entitled to see ahead of time, what they have a right to know about, what should be included in the agenda for sunshine law. So particularly for action items, I think weight needs to be given to sunshine law and the spirit of transparency to the residents.
Thank you for that. And the other issue I was going to suggest that would help maybe Vice Mayor's concerns regarding just putting all that work in an item and having it die. Having done that myself when I first got on the commission, got so excited, worked really hard on a driveway ordinance only to find out that nobody had the appetite that I did. And I had committed so much time into it, it was a total waste. And the reason I'm going to suggest that is that maybe if you're not sure you want to spend the time, that's the time to bring up a discussion item and say, hey, does the commission have an appetite for that item? So you don't spend enormous amounts of time invested into the item. So, for example, if I decided I wanted to put in a VITA course in the middle, in front of the village hall here, and I wanted to know, and I found this great grant that could do it, but I just wanted to know if the commission was interested, right? I could say, I have a 2-minute discussion, this is what's interested, I put some backup material, before I pursue it further, are you all interested? That allows not time to be wasted going for an item that nobody else cares about.
Sorry, that was... Excuse me, that was my babysitter alarm. She's agreed to give me an extra hour this evening.
Oh, that's most kind of her. Tell her we said thank you.
So, breaking the conversation up into action items and discussion items, let's tackle action first. what, if any, minimum standards are we bouncing around for action items? My recommendation is, at minimum, the call to action, the reason, and the potential budgetary impact. I think those are things the residents should be entitled to know in advance of the meeting.
I'd also like
We have
backup
that in the
material.
memo currently.
But
Right.
I think,
Just
But it's not-
formalizing it.
Yeah, this is to put it in the code and make it a requirement in the code, because we're already doing that, but it's not codified anywhere.
and I do think if there's backup material supporting it, it would be helpful to have that as well. Not everything has to have a backup material, but the recommendation to have backup material.
I'm just concerned that if commissioners look at an agenda item and they don't like the agenda item, they already made up their mind and they're not going to second it. That's a problem I'm having.
But if they're not going to support it, they're not going to support it. I don't understand. Explain it to me, because I don't understand the procedural concern. If a commissioner's not going to support an item, how?
If you
Not
don't
having the
want,
information.
because we had a discussion before the election on this, if we don't want an agenda item, if we want to stop an individual from putting an agenda item, we just don't give him a second. And by putting it ahead of time, you're already knowing that you're going to be able to see. We already had this discussion before the election on one of the other candidates, that they didn't want that individual to, if they don't like his agenda items, we just don't give him a second. And at the commission meeting, you can decide not to give it a second, and it'll be transparent. You can have where they're reading your material ahead of time, and they don't have to give a real good reason at the commission meeting. I just don't want to have a second.
Can I ask a question? So because I don't understand something, maybe you can clarify it for me. If you don't put information out there and then you have to bring it up for discussion, it's going to take longer, that's for sure. And on top of that, we don't have enough information except what you're saying from your mouth, not from, and I'm not saying you particularly, but that commissioner, and therefore we might not have enough information. To me, I'd be less likely to vote for it. If, on the other hand, you're giving me a lot of information and you have a 3-minute opening, that provides me more information to understand what you're trying to get through.
No, because
Well, wouldn't it also be,
And it's fair to the residents because they know what they're looking at.
yeah, wouldn't it be, the big thing would be being transparent to residents?
That's-
Because when you have your item on there, residents should be able to, when they get their agenda on Friday, be able to see, they'll have the memo, fine, but if you're have supporting documents, attachments behind that, they should have all that then and there so they can have questions when they come.
And they can comment, yeah.
As opposed to, they do their public comment at the beginning, and then we start getting to the items, and they're like, well, it's not it's not an ordinance, I can't, there's no more public comment, and I have questions about what's being said. I think it's also not just for the commission, but for the residents. If I'm a resident sitting out there, any commissioner that presents an action item, I want the full support behind that. I want a clearly articulated memo so I understand this is the rationale behind it, this is the impact, this is what they're proposing, so that I can be prepared at this meeting as a resident to ask the questions of my commissioners.
Because we're not the only ones who may have a question or a difference of opinion or some information they want, because it also gives them time to then email their commissioners and say, hey, I really think this idea is crazy, or I really think this idea is great, I found some other information. This allows them more participation, I would think.
Well, Vice Mayor, what's the alternative?
I don't know, because I've heard at this commission in the last couple, not whatever meetings is that we want to be able to look at the commissioner's items beforehand, and then just come right to the meeting and automatically give them 3 minutes, and then, we're not going to have we're not going to move forward.
And we all suffer that consequence potentially every time we come up here and put ourselves out there to try and have an item.
Yeah, and I think
I do think
that's-
it's, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I do think it's our individual responsibilities as commissioners to bring matters of import to these meetings. And it is up to us to persuade our fellow commissioners that the issue that we are bringing to the dais is of sufficient merit to warrant discussion. If a majority of us do not agree with that, then it doesn't matter who we are or what we're raising. It doesn't advance the business of the village. That's part of the reason we have a vote, is for us to say, yes, we think this is something that is going to benefit the village, that warrants discussion, or is going to take up time that is better spent advancing village needs. So it's our responsibility to make that argument and to persuade each other that something is worthy of discussion.
Because the commissioner, an individual commissioner, is still going to be able to present their item.
Yeah, 3 minutes. If you're going at the concept you're talking about, 3 minutes is not going to be enough. Then, if you're saying that I have to put everything into my backup, and then I only have 3 minutes to talk.
So I guess the request is not, you don't want to put backup. You want commissioners to have more than 3 minutes to present. You know.
How much time?
To be able to put everything that I need to discuss in my backup. I might find, as the time's going on, that I'm going to have other stuff more that I want to add up.
No, this conversation isn't about including everything. This is about what do we want at minimum.
Minimum, it's a minimum standard.
The minimum to bring items before the commission. I think.
We already have that.
But it's not in the code.
It needs to be codified.
And this is the time to discuss. Well, I don't like. The residents complain sometimes that things weren't attached that they would have liked to see. So this is the time to discuss that and say, Resident X is always complaining that we never include the Excel sheet. Maybe we should make that a requirement. So that's the discussion we're having. What at minimum should be. For an action item, we're breaking it up. So for action items, what should be required?
I think you should have background. I think pretty much what the memo is now, but I think it should all be included there. The only exception might be if they know the budget, to put it in there, at least make a statement about the budget. You may not know the exact amount, but at least you'll know whether there is an impact or not. That's the only thing I would caution, because not always do we know the cost. But I think if we know the cost, we surely should put that in there, absolutely.
The way it is now, the attorney or the city manager determines the cost.
Not necessarily.
Right? No, you shaking his head, yes it is.
No, it's not always. It depends on what the specific item is. If it's an item that I'm bringing forward, then yeah, I'll determine the cost. But if it's something the commissioner's bringing forward, they should, include that, or I'll work with them to include that.
So do we all agree for a minimum standard, at least for an actionable item? Are we all, for the most part, are all of us in agreement? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Does the commission think there should be minimum standards for submitting discussion items for meetings? Like a cover memo or?
I think it should be, I think a cover memo is fine, but I also think for the discussion item, it should be about village business for the most part, so that but I don't know if we can regulate that, so.
That's very broad.
Yeah, I know. I'll withdraw it, but I think what I'm trying to make sure we're doing is we're focusing on village business.
It's such a big umbrella. I'm trying to contemplate something that wouldn't be village business.
Well, I think you can submit a memo for any discussion item. If it doesn't get a second, it doesn't get discussed. And if the commissioner presenting it can't gain a second and wants to insist on going forward, then he or she will be talking to themselves. Because if no one wants to discuss it, you sit in silence at the dais.
Well, this brings back something that Commissioner Tudor had recommended a while back, and we had talked about it, and I think we did it at the first time you brought this up, and that was the idea that if there is no second, we don't move forward. And that's it. Because this way we're not spending 15, 20, 30 minutes on an item that has no gain.
Right, but where we are in the proposed procedures, or what's required to submit to the clerk to make the agenda, like physical, like
Oh, okay.
document.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think
That's okay.
the memo is what we're
what we're doing now.
Right now is
Yes, let's just codify what we're presently doing.
So can we codify what we're doing
So
now?
a minimum, a cover memo. Okay.
With the same information that we're currently using, or how do you want to do that?
Current memo is great. I just, yeah.
So why don't we just codify those sections within that memo? Does everybody agree to that?
And
Yes.
and the current memo has some kind of a template, like a structure that
We're going to codify that. That's what we just agreed to.
easy to follow.
Yep.
Okay. And it's easy. Yep.
Okay, so emergency matters and time-sensitive matters, these would be items that are being tacked onto the agenda after the 8-day rule.
Are you talking about pocket items or after the fact?
These would be matters that are being brought before the commission under exigent circumstances.
Okay.
I haven't seen this issue in the village, but I've seen it in other jurisdictions. This rule gets abused. So I would caution the village on this one. I'm not saying don't include it, I'm just saying make sure it's I like this version because towards the end it says the commission must ratify the emergency or time-sensitive circumstance by a majority vote of the commission members present for that item to proceed.
Yeah, that sounds
So
reasonable.
that, I think, prevents anyone from unilaterally saying, no, that's an emergency, so it didn't make publication, but it's emergency, so we have to talk about it. That could come up, but then the commission should have to agree that it is indeed an emergency, and the emergency or time-sensitive circumstances has to be disclosed.
Do we want it as a majority or supermajority is the other question.
That's my next question. That's my next notation.
I think just the majority.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. You fine with that, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. Next.
Mayor,
Yes.
can we actually jump ahead to page 7 and do
Decorum?
the decorum aspects of this?
So the
That
chief-
way we can
yeah.
let the chief and
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
the sergeant at arms go home.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Have lives.
Go ahead. Thank you for thinking of them. My apologies.
Sorry, Chief. Okay, the first one is preservation of order. Meetings are supposed to be conducted in an orderly manner. Public has to have a full opportunity to be heard. The process must be conducted as efficiently as possible. The presiding officer is responsible for maintaining order. That's pretty standard.
Yep.
Any comments on
No,
that?
Nope.
Okay,
That's fine.
and item 2 is essentially echoing the preservation of order obligation of the presiding officer and saying the commission has to also make efforts to maintain order and follow the rules. 3 also echoes the preservation of order and extends it to staff members that may be in attendance at the meeting. Okay, 4. Members of the public are afforded the opportunity to address the commission on any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. I think this was the county's language.
I like it.
This has come up before, and I think I have it somewhere. I don't know if the commission wants to break up
I know I do.
action items versus right, and this keeps coming up, and we were told to discuss it in the workshop, so I'm bringing it up in the workshop. I made a note of that.
I'm going to highly recommend that we do that so that we can get through business. However, if I have, and this is really up to the climate that's occurring, because it's very climate specific. If we only had 2 people in a room and they just wanted to talk and nobody cared, nobody would care. And they wouldn't have to sit 4 hours to the meeting. On the other hand, if you have, 15 people getting up at 3 minutes each, and you have public hearings there, we have had, unfortunately, not taken up at least 50% of our time sometimes, or 40% with comments. And so, on certain occasions. So I am highly recommending, I've seen some villages that don't have any good welfare. I don't recommend that for our village at all. I don't think it's important for the village to be able to communicate
Well,
with
then
the residents.
The threshold question is, does the commission have any interest in breaking up public comment into agenda specific and non-agenda specific on the agenda in general? Because it's come up before in individual meetings, and the directive is, let's talk about that when we do the workshop on procedures. So now we're in the workshop on procedures. What does everyone think about that? Because if the answer is, yeah, let's break it up, then the next question is, do you want to break it up into a agenda-specific general public comment in the beginning, or do you want to do a short public comment period as you go through action items for each item? Those are all things to consider, because they're done, those are the different ways that it's done.
My opinion, sorry, lozenge for the throat. My opinion is we should have agenda-specific items first. Not including public hearings, which is a separate issue, and ordinances. And then I think you should general good and welfare at the end. I think that would make sure we got through our village business first.
Yeah, but then you basic.
Let me-
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If, on the other hand, you allowed the presiding officer a little bit of leeway, if you had somebody who was older, disabled, if there was a time, if it allowed some leeway so that if the climate allowed for a generic comment in the beginning, and they signed up and asked for it in advance, and sent in an email and said, I want to discuss X, or sign up for it, and then allow the commission to vote on it, or the presiding officer to vote on it, that might give a little flexibility. But personally, I would like to see agenda item specifics first and public comments last. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor,
That's
all
okay,
yours.
thanks. We as commissioners, we have to be here. That's our job. What we're saying is, if I'm understanding, you're saying the public comments is at the end, you're going to make residents have to stay here until the end of the meeting to have their do public comments.
No. So there's different ways to go about public comment. You could have all public comments, whether it's on agenda item or just general, something they want to air grievances about. You could have all of that at the beginning, or you could break it up so agenda specific, like public comment on items that are on the agenda for that night get heard first. You get through your agenda, and then you do general comments on things that weren't on the agenda but the resident wants to bring to the commission's attention towards the end, if at all. A third option is, instead of breaking it out into two, you break it out as you go through and you call people up. Does anyone want to speak on the Waste Pro contract? Public comment on the Waste Pro contract. And then the Waste Pro contract is on the floor. As you go through it, and then you do general public comment on non-agenda items towards the end. I'm just telling you the ways other places do it. Like, City of Miami goes through it item by item, but their meetings take all day. So I'm just putting the options out there. The legal standard is the residents have a right, and again, I'm going to repeat that, a right to be heard on any action item before this commission votes on it. That's
Action agenda specific item.
action items, anything that the commission's going to vote
Not
on.
a discussion item, just an action item.
Correct.
Okay.
So, and that has to happen before. So in terms of structuring and thinking about public comment, keep that in mind. You don't have to make a hard and fast decision today. You could decide that you're going to put something in the rules that allow you to make that decision during agenda approval. I mean, you don't have to.
See, and here's how I look at it mathematically. If you have 15 people who sit up at every meeting, there was one time where we had 9 minutes of comments per person, just about. And so we had two ordinances or two public hearings. I can't remember. I think it was two ordinances. No, it was two public hearings. And everyone got up and spoke. And most of it was repeat attacks on the commission. It wasn't about village business. And that's the truth. So the question is, do we want to have meetings that last till 11 and have to reschedule and continue to have this type of unproductive meetings, or do we want to allow to have everybody still have their say, but we get through our business first, so at least we know by 10 o'clock we've done our village business, or 9:30 we've got all our village business done, and then whatever's left over we would deal with. And I just think that from a fiscal responsibility, it's not any less transparent, okay? But from a fiscal management perspective, it will also allow the residents to really focus on what we're trying to do, because now we're focused on things that have nothing to do with village business. And it ends up, in my opinion, hijacking the meetings. And I'm being candid because I'll do whatever the commissioners want, but as a person presiding over this, it just is difficult.
If the commission wants to keep them together because of the financial impact, my recommendation is that anything that had to be advertised would take priority on the agenda and occur first.
So you're still making the residents stay. If they want to make a public comment, they got to be sure they stay until 11 o'clock. They don't have to stay. We as commissioners have to stay because this is our job.
I'm referring to like ordinances for second read that were advertised for that day, just because your meetings do run late. And I would just say if general public comment's going to stay lumped in with agenda specific, that's a huge chunk of time. So anything that had to be advertised probably gets its own hearing anyway, right? So I think that should take place before you open the floor for general public comments.
Yeah. 45 minutes on average, I think we could probably guess, but we're at 3 minutes a pop at about 15 people, so anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. And I just want to make that time specific, so that means our meetings start at 7, but we don't even start village business until 7:45.
And the reason I said the alternative is to bump up certain things in priority on the agenda is because it does cost the village money to advertise for second read. Mm-hmm. And certain items people do come to the meetings for. If it's an ordinance that might affect their house or their block or whatever, and those items can't be rolled. It's expensive. The residents don't like it. we're prepping for those issues twice. So that's just something I would caution the commission about if we're going to keep the comment periods lumped together, which is fine, but then the rest of the agenda approach should probably be reworked because it's not working.
Well, with the ordinance things, they have to comment before. I mean, I have a problem.
Right,
I have
so
no
that-
problem if there's an ordinance coming up that they only comment before the ordinance is actually being read.
That's already here. That's already done. That's already
Right,
done.
Right.
I'm talking about public comments. I don't want to have where the residents are not going to be able to give their public comments until the end of the meeting.
On things that aren't on the agenda. No, I'm asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the laws, they have the right, and you have the obligation to hear them before you vote, if it's something you're going to vote on. So you can't move that. You can't.
Yeah,
But we can move the comments where someone says, I don't like the mayor's hair, or I don't like Will's glasses, or I don't like the way you look at me across the dais. Those are things that do not advance village business. I am in agreement that public comment at the beginning of the meeting should be restricted to agenda items exclusively. If there is other village issues that a resident would like to raise, they are free to stay until business is concluded to do so in a second round of public comment. I don't think anyone who doesn't have an issue that is outside of village business should be forced to stay for an hour and a half, or whatever it is, to listen to a whole bunch of off-topic stuff, to wait to make a public comment that addresses an agenda item. I do think it is more efficient. It's in better interest of the village. It's more respectful to anyone who attends this meeting for public comments to be exclusively addressing agenda items for that day.
Commissioner Tudor.
Yeah, I'm of the school of thought that, I understand there's a lot of comments that are made by residents during public comments that are not necessarily specific to agenda items or discussion items that are before the commission that night. So I think sometimes that noise, or that's thought of as being noise, and so that drowns out the residents that I do remember coming in who were not speaking on a specific agenda item, but they know the meeting starts at 7 o'clock. They come in at 7 o'clock because they have a general comment question that they want to ask the commission because they got to get out of here. For those people, unless you say we're going to take agenda-specific comments at the beginning and we'll stop the meeting at, 8:30 p.m. and we'll take...
So if you had a time specific,
You would have to have a time specific and not time specific 10 o'clock, but early enough to where somebody would know, for general comments, it's going to be precisely at 8 o'clock. But the problem with that, doing it that way, is now all of a sudden you're stopping the meeting partway through because you got people showing up at 8 o'clock for general comments. I just think
I'm going to ask you a question.
It's easier just to have it at the very beginning and give priority. The first people to speak at public comments, the people who are speaking on an agenda item can speak on that agenda item, and then you have the general public comments right behind that.
Commissioner
I think at
Tudor,
the beginning of meetings a better.
may I ask Commissioner Tudor, do you agree that any given individual should have one bite at the apple, that you can't get up and make multiple public comments?
Unless there's an ordinance on there and we're going to have public comments
Right,
open
that's
for that
different.
ordinance.
Yeah, that's different.
But I don't think somebody should. I think once you sign up to speak. I don't recall that really being that
Well-
much of an issue where a resident has got up, spoke.
Well-
Now they'll speak from their seat,
Right.
but not necessarily getting up and saying, I'm going to sign up again.
Well, the other thing I've seen a lot of, and I can, as the presiding officer, do that now that we'll have an ordinance, but they're oftentimes off topic about what they're talking about. So they'll get up at a public ordinance and go back over the same item, which we can prevent by ordinance. So, for example, we're talking about chickens. And they suddenly get up and talk about, well, this politician isn't doing this and that has nothing to do with chickens. But they'll go ranting about something that has nothing to do with an agenda-specific ordinance, but they'll get up and talk for 3 minutes. So while we're allowed to do it, while I'm permitted as the presiding officer sitting in this chair and somebody else will be in this chair, they're permitted to stop somebody from talking about that. It isn't done that often. So I will tell you honestly that under the current climate, I think it's really a bad thing to be sitting here till 11 o'clock at night when we could have a 2.5-hour meeting, because we're afraid to not regulate time, place, and manner, which is not only our right, it's our fiduciary obligation. I think the cost to this village is tremendous. I cannot tell you not only the cost fiscally, but the cost of residents not coming to this meeting. I cannot tell you how many people will not come to this meeting because of what we have in public comments. And I think it is our fiduciary responsibility, as well as our political responsibility, to make these meetings run in an efficient, business-like, professional manner.
Let alone, I'm sorry, just to follow on, let alone consider embracing the civic duty of sitting on this dais. I've had a number of people say to me, after coming to a meeting and witnessing some of the off-topic commentary during public comment, say, I would never put my hat in the ring to represent this village, and I think that's a sad state of affairs.
Or, hold on, one more thing. Or, I cannot tell you how many people have told me, I cannot tell how many people recently have told me that they want to sell their house because of the banter in some of our meetings. So, and then I'm happy to relinquish, sir. I think we have a responsibility here, and I think we may have to wait till we have another commissioner sitting here to decide this, but I think we need to really seriously look at this. Sir.
So you're saying that this commission gets to decide to censor the residents on what they can say?
No. It just makes it time, place, and manner. You want to explain time, place, and manner, please?
So the commission is allowed to restrict the speech during meetings by issuing time, place, and manner restrictions. That's the constitutional law. Then the state of Florida says the commission has to hear any resident who wishes to address them in a meeting before the commission takes action. So reading those two things together, the commission can institute procedures to comply with the state law, to comply with the federal law, while efficiently getting through the meetings, which is an obligation that each of you has as a commissioner, because you really only
which I think we're not doing.
To get through village business really once a month. And it's just food for thought. It sounds like there's not really a consensus on this one. You know, I tried to put everything in here that I thought it could be a potential procedure. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen.
I just wanted to add, I think it doesn't restrict anybody's access to information or opinion of the commission, the staff, or administration to confine the opening public comments to agenda items. We are all available by email. There are plenty of opportunities to vet ideas and address opinions to any member of this commission, the staff, the manager. So to suggest that restricting public comment to actual items that are on the agenda and to be addressed that evening is somehow curbing someone's right to access to their government or their freedom of opinion or expression, I think is misguided. And I do think these meetings are incredibly inefficient. I do think the atmosphere is incredibly negative in large part because of things that are said during public comment. And it starts many of our meetings off and with a very negative tone and makes them a slog to get through. And I've seen people who are coming here for the first time walk out of a meeting because of that climate. And I think if we confine it to what's on the agenda, we will have a more positive and productive environment. And I will not be persuaded otherwise. Just so it's clear to my fellow commissioners, I do not approve of the current state of affairs of public comment.
Another thing to consider is having a special meeting that's just to accept general public comments, separate from your business meeting. Food for thought. I think we need to put a pin in that particular part of the decorum rules in the interest of the chief. I didn't.
Is there anybody changed their mind?
No, because I know at some point in time I'm going to be sitting over there, and there may be people who are opposed to where I stand on certain issues, and I don't want to have to sit here and have to come out and stay to a meeting till 11 o'clock to make if I need to make a 5-minute comment about, a general inquiry or a general...
What if there were a separate meeting?
Comment.
This is about getting business done, not about not hearing You know what I mean? We've rolled over incredibly important matters because public comment has taken so long.
And a
so
cost.
We have not done our jobs because we are not drawing a firm line on what is appropriate. So if we could set a standard that there will be some sort of separate meeting for those kinds of airings, I would be more comfortable doing that. At least I would know that we are doing our jobs and getting the business on the agenda done for that day.
Well, I have to see a cost comparison between having it at a regular meeting and then all of a sudden scheduling a separate meeting on a different day just to sit there for X period of time to take general comments. I mean, I know some of the things that are said during general comments are distasteful, but you know, I think you run the risk of, by, even though you can move general comments to an end of a meeting that may end at 11 o'clock at night.
But it won't now. That's the whole point.
Well,
this is where I have a staunch disagreement with you on this.
The meetings don't drag on just because of residents. It also drags on because of the commission.
Agreed. Now that I'm agreeing.
Really just, we can't just look at the residents and
say. No, and I agree with you on that. We go on and on and on.
And that's why we're doing this, because one of the things about the decorum rules is having something in place to where when somebody gets out of line,
agreed,
can we address it? Because if we could address when somebody, crosses that line.
So will my fellow commissioners, and this is a serious question, will my fellow commissioners not put it only on the presiding officer, okay, to reach out and say, I'm sorry, that person's in violation of the decorum rules. I'm asking my fellow commissioners and the presiding officer to take action, because this can't just fall on one person sitting up on this dais. If you want meetings to run smoothly, if you don't want to allow for ranting and repeating and personal attacks, if you want a more cordial meeting where 3,100 people are represented, not a small handful, then we have to change how we're doing our business. And I think we're being unfair to the vast majority of people that might attend these meetings. And I cannot tell you how many people just refuse to go on boards now. They won't apply to be on the commission, all because we are allowing this. We are doing this. And I think I really seriously suggest that you all reconsider.
We have had this problem. In the past, we have had commissions, and we have never had this problem. And if it's happening at this, it's because it's this commission.
No.
I think it is, because we've had the same people here for other commissions, and I don't remember it being this bad.
I do.
I've been here since 2003, and I've
been here 12 years.
I've been here 20.
It's been just as bad at other times.
Yeah.
Well,
it's, unfortunately, and I've said this before, unfortunately, this village, for decades, the commission has been chosen by a select few because we had our own elections. And when we finally moved to the general election, it changed the dynamic.
Right, and they're not happy with that outcome, and so they're making this their personal, and all of us know this because we get, I don't know how many emails, how many was there, 15 today? How many, and the internal conversations. What I'm saying to you is that it is our responsibility as commissioners to have good governance, and we can't do it under the current climate. And it's not suppression of speech to manage time, place, and manner. And I assure you that none of these individuals have not had a to express their concerns.
If I may, I think we're kind of at an impasse on this particular issue.
Okay, so we'll move on.
And
we'll have to wait till we have a full commission to do that discussion.
Okay, and
this is just a discussion anyway. I mean, there's no action being taken. This is just to get feedback without eating up a regular commission meetings time.
Okay, and I mean, I haven't read ahead, but I would just like to say, sort of on the same matter, I do not want to be addressed by my first name when I am on the dais. I do not want to be called girl or one of the girls.
The misogyny is absolutely appalling.
Oh, I don't disagree with you on that.
So just as far as the decorum rules are concerned, I would like the presiding officer to have the right to require anyone who is speaking to the commission during public comment to call us by commissioner and our last name.
And if they're not willing to do that,
I don't know these people. I don't have personal relationships with these people. None of them are my friends or even acquaintances. So it is inappropriate, and I think it is a standard that needs to be set across the board. and adhere to. We call them by their last names. They call us by our titles and last names. And anything else is a violation of decorum.
Do we agree? Yes?
Yeah, I'm Southern, so of course I agree by that.
I believe that's there already.
It is, but it's not enforced.
No,
And so
it's not.
we
No,
want to
we're
get
gonna
this in
enforce it,
place
yeah.
so that when it happens, it's enforced.
Yeah,
This way, if I, as the presiding officer or someone else sitting in this chair, they can say, I'm sorry, in order to address this commission, you must address by first name and title. That's it.
Yeah, now.
Right, now it's there in
Yeah,
black
now
and
it's
white.
there. That's what we had the discussion on, myself and the attorney, just to.
So you concur, Chief?
I wish it would have been here a long time ago. I mean,
Thank you, sir.
respect is something that should be all the way, in order for us to conduct this.
Thank you.
Mayor, I just wanted to go over something really quick.
Sure.
Because Paul, real quick. I read through this whole stuff. I know you guys are going to go through it. And from the police aspect, there's really nothing.
So you support what's here?
Yeah,
As is
the only
written?
part that I wanted to, just as a recommendation to respectfully assist the commission is on the warnings. I just, I
Which
didn't know
page,
if you-
please? Just tell us where we are, which
Oh, I
page?
apologize.
8A.
Yeah, 8A. I didn't know if you wanted to add something with the warnings, Madam Attorney, where it's, you address the audience as, you're now out of order. Consider this your first warning. So words like they do almost in court.
Absolutely.
These are just recommendations. So like that is firm, it's direct, and it's specific. You're now out of order. This is your first warning. And then it doesn't say in there either if we're gonna go and this is your call, I'm just saying, if it's 1 warning, 2 warnings, 3, I don't know how you want to work it. So I don't know if you want to put that in there or not. Maybe it's 2 warnings and then we act. So that's one of the things I picked up on real quick. The other.
So that should be in B, instructed to leave the meeting if after receiving is it second warning, third warning? What is it?
I would recommend, so that we have this under control, it be no more than 2. You shouldn't have to tell somebody 3 times the same thing.
Well, okay, so let me summarize what it currently says, and we can talk about what we think should be changed. This would, if it stays the way it is, and this is what ends up being codified, it would be that the presiding officer says, hey, you're out of order, please conform to the decorum rules. That's warning 1, and that comes from the presiding officer. Then, if they persist, the presiding officer tells them to leave from the dais. Just, you're still in violation of the decorum rules. Please leave. That happens from the dais. If they still don't leave and they still persist, then the sergeant at arms would walk over to them and instruct them to leave. That would be 3. And then, if at that point they refuse to comply and leave, then they will be removed. So that would be 4.
I have a question too, because there's 2 things that happens. You can have out of order at the podium, you could have out of order in the audience, but you can also have a situation where they're being very noisy.
Well, that would be a decorum violation.
So that would be follow the same rule.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to leave it up to basically the chief and the sergeant of arms to make that decision.
You can't. The presiding
Under
officer
decorum.
is responsible for the managing of the meeting. It's not.
Because you can say to-
You act like this is some benefit.
Well, here's the chief and I talked about that a lot. A lot.
I would love to do that.
Over the past several months, right? So, I attached this case out of Key West. I don't know if it.
Yes.
Okay, that's the case. Okay, and in that case,
Got this thing tonight. I couldn't read it.
well, I'm going to summarize it for you because this is what the chief and I have been bouncing around. This is the case, and it's a Florida case, which is even better for us, where the timeline I just walked through, that warning system happened, and the person was ended up being physically removed, and then they sued, and because there was an ordinance walking through the steps for warning before removal, and that they followed those steps, the city prevailed. So whatever the procedure the commission's comfortable with, I really recommend it be codified. It protects the sergeant at arms, our village police department, the presiding officer, and the commission if they don't override the presiding officer's decision to remove.
Let me be clear so that everybody understands. You have the right with a simple or supermajority. How do we do that? We haven't yet. You have the right to override. So if I eject somebody out of a meeting and you all don't concur with that,
That's what your current decorum will say, and I have it notated towards the end so we can codify it. But your decorum that's in every agenda you have has that override provision. So that's to be.
You don't have to be concerned that it's only on the presiding officer. So if I eject Tracy, who's sitting in the front row, because she will not stop talking, then you all have a right to at that point override and make a motion to override.
So by law, the presiding officer is obligated to maintain order in these meetings.
Could you explain that in greater detail? Because you and I have discussed that a great deal.
Okay, so the presiding officer has an obligation to maintain order in these public meetings so the village can get through business. That obligation sits in that chair. Whoever's in that chair has to maintain order so you can get through your agenda and get through village business. That's the obligation of every commissioner here. So if they fail in that duty, it's a problem. So to suggest that the presiding officer, whether it be the mayor, the vice mayor, or someone who's elected in the absence of both for purposes of that meeting, wouldn't have the authority to maintain order by instructing the sergeant-at-arms to do something that needs to be done, it's counterintuitive to the obligation that presiding officer has to preside over the meeting in the first place, if that makes sense. So how do you want to corral that, codify that authority, lay out the steps so that they're complied with?
And part of the discussion going with laying out the steps, and we've looked at a couple of options. And Madam Mayor, I think you brought one up. Is you're out of order. I'm providing you this warning. I personally, like always, so nobody can second guess me and play the game later. I'm advising you for a second time. You're out of order. The next time you will be asked to be removed from the meeting. Or whatever step you decide.
I am very happy with you and the manager, you, the manager, and the village attorney sitting down and crafting this. I'm happy to stay out of it and have you all decide what is appropriate. I have no problem with that. It has to be, I'm just telling you by law. I have zero problem with the verbiage or how it's done. What I want to be able to do is do it fairly, equitably, and across the board. And get these meetings to where they're polite enough that other people might like to attend.
Right.
That is my ultimate goal here. And safety, one other comment. The warnings work great unless there's a real serious situation, and then all bets are off. And I'm just telling you that because that is the reality. There are circumstances where I've had one individual stand up, lean over during a break, and was spitting at me, literally, in upsetness. And I literally had to warn that individual to step back. Had that individual not stepped back, there wouldn't have been a second warning.
So the only person I've really heard opposition to is Vice Mayor Samaria. So Vice Mayor Samaria, what would you propose? What would be the alternative?
But the alternative is that the sergeant of arms is the one that should basically, is the one that's running it. He should determine whether or not a resident should leave. It shouldn't be anybody up here.
Now, once the mayor...
Can I just have some, bear with me for a little bit. You've been a sergeant-at-arms before?
I've not been an official sergeant-at-arms, but at my last department, the chief would assign me to actually perform the duty, but I wasn't officially.
Okay.
And then if I wasn't available, another officer would do it.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, have you ever heard of anybody doing this? What's being suggested?
For the sergeant-at-arms to have sole discretion as to whether or not rules of decorum are enforced.
No, we didn't do it that way at my last place.
Thank you.
Mayor, as my experience, I have to confer with you. I was in the city of Miami. We have sergeant of arms. We have multiple sergeant of arms.
You were going to be next to my question. I just wanted to give both people.
The answer to that is the presiding officer, the chairman of the commission, is the one that provides the instructions, and then we go through the steps
needed. Mayor, just for clarification, I agree with you. There's times where we're gonna have to act either first warning or no warning.
And
Especially if-
they'll do it without me even saying anything.
Right, or you say
Right.
anything.
Hopefully not, but that could occur.
Right, the only reason why I said, and it's only an abundance of caution, because you've seen it happen before. There's some people who say, oh, I didn't even hear the warning, you know? So you can't even argue, so they can't even say this. You've told them, now you've been warned for the second time, and it's clear, you know?
As I said, if it's not an objection to the commission here, I think we should leave it to the people who know what they're doing. And clearly, I think that would be a reasonable thing to do. Allow them to craft the language, the number of warnings, and then we can look at it after that. Do we all agree on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
And the last thing, I'm sorry, is, and myself and the attorney spoke, we're probably gonna have to look at this, after more research, if we're gonna have to draft as part of an ordinance, we have to look at what's comparable to state statute, and maybe draft an ordinance that empowers the sergeant of arms to take specific actions pertaining to the public audience. What I mean is, currently, you want me to get into this? I defer.
I think we need to be careful on the safety issues. Okay.
Yeah, so, and again, we were talking about this today, so this is something I'll research and bring back to the commission as an item at another meeting, but we're going to explore whether the village needs to start looking into codifying its own criminal code. This is an example of the village has some unique issues crime-wise, and so it's part of something bigger for later, but this is an example of something that the chief and I have discussed. Maybe this could be a local ordinance specific to the village. So it's not for today, it's not in here, but the whole commission's here, so we're updating you. The chief and I have been working on these particular items a lot. I have something to, in public comment today, there was a comment about the dais and approaching the dais. I put that in there because the chief has a serious concern about the way the residents approach the dais. You're not supposed to do that. Nope. And I know the sergeant at arms has had to talk to residents about that before.
I just want to be clear. I have not approached you to include that language, correct? This is something that you all...
No, this is...
No,
I want that announced so the public can hear, please.
It's on.
I think it's being...
I have discussed this issue with the manager, with the attorney, with the sergeant of arms, for multiple reasons, and I'm not going to get into all of them.
I just want to support it. I don't even... Yeah.
Nobody should be approaching the dais, approaching the commissioners, unless properly authorized. And what I mean is very simple, just like in a court of law. Any attorney, anybody does it, Your Honor, may I approach the bench, Your Honor? You know.
So they can approach. They just have to ask for the decorum.
Right.
They have to ask permission to do it. Correct. So, Madam Mayor, may I approach the dais and pass out this?
Well,
picture
The only people that have been coming is after the meeting. So you're saying after the meetings?
Hold on.
Because that's what the only time I've seen residents, I haven't seen any residents approach the dais during the meeting.
Well, they have during recess.
approached.
They have during
recess.
During recesses, yeah.
What I'm trying, for safety reasons.
I'm sorry if you're talking to the mic, Chief, please.
For safety reasons,
During the proceedings, and we want to avoid that contact or the ability to have a contact where it can become physical or any other issues may arise. Also, if we're going to set the quorum rules, in order to approach the dais for safety reasons, everybody should be aware of it. And that's my humble public servant opinion, and it's for safety reasons.
And I'd like to point out that the village is unique because you're in a historic building. Your dais is very low. In other municipalities, it's heightened like a judge, so you're looking down at people, and there's a distance. There's no distance here. And I'm guilty of it as well because the chief has told me multiple times when residents approach you during recess, you can't let them walk up to the dais and speak to you. And last meeting, I did it again, and it wasn't until the sergeant of arms was right there, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're not supposed to be at the dais." You're making him nervous.
I think there's two confusions here, and I want to be clear, because I can see it from both sides. And one is, we've always had kind of this, I've been here for 20-some-odd years, and always you can walk up and talk to your commissioners and whatever before the meeting, and even after the meeting, if they have concerns. I think the problem has been is we are not in the same world as I was. I like to call this diverse Mayberry because we are just this really unique, wonderful place. And I always liked the fact that I could walk up to my commissioners and talk to them. So I like that feeling of hominess and comfort. But I think we're living in a different world than we were before. And I think we do have to have a little more caution, at least some rules. That doesn't mean that you can't go speak, you can't leave the dais, walk away from here and go into the audience and speak to folks. It doesn't mean after a meeting you can't walk around the dais and go and speak to folks. And I think if they want to come up, you can just say, is it okay? And I'll say, sure. I mean, I think that at least leaves some rules. And maybe if they ask each an individual commissioner to come up after a meeting, I don't have a problem with that either. As long as there's not a heated discussion where there could be a problem with security. And I think that's really what your goal is, correct, Chief?
Yes, well, let me just get to the point. From a law enforcement perspective, I think the attorney was right on point. I'm not speaking loud enough. I'm sorry. Oh no, I'm sorry. From a law enforcement perspective, we want to have enough time to react. We want to know that when certain barriers are crossed, then we need to be more mindful. And the second thing that occurred, to be very direct, there was an incident in the commission meeting where I had to address and that specific day, I was alone. So I had to kind of address 2 or 3 different issues right at the dais, right at the moment where things were going, multiple things were going on. And I think it jeopardizes the safety of the public, and it jeopardizes the safety of those who serve as commissioners. This is just, I don't think this hurts anybody. We're just setting a decorum, just ask to approach, and then everybody's on the same, the sergeant of arms will know, everybody knows, and that's all I'm recommending.
And you're not having 10 or 12 people coming up simultaneously, yeah.
Thanks, Chief. I just wanted to specifically address the dais. I know that's kind of out of order of where we are, but that was added at the request of the chief for consideration of the commission. I wanted that clear. So, if there's any other comments about approaching the dais, or can we?
I'll make a quick comment. Having done years of court security, I understand the chief's concerns and why he wants to implement that, and I understand during the meetings that probably should be the case. I think personality-wise, I don't think people really sometimes grasp that our roles up here, we're elected municipal officials. So this is actually a professional government meeting, so there has to be that professionalism and that security that's placed there. For too long, it's been way too casual. And so, and I know just the way I've always interact when I'm in a professional setting, when I'm working here as a commissioner, residents are Mr., Mrs.
Correct.
And I expect the same. Now on the street, run into them in the park, they call me first name, I'm fine in that respect. But so I understand that. I think residents are going to have to understand that this isn't your local condo HOA. This is a municipal building. This is an elected government body, and it's an official government meeting. So there has to be some guidelines there, and there has to be some.
Because I remember a couple of times where it became very obvious to me that line was not clear. They were sitting on the dais, leaning over, trying to impose, very tall individuals trying to impose themselves onto others, trying to instigate. And I think that really puts the police at risk. Not only the commissioners at risk, but also puts our police at risk.
Well, that's where the chief has been coming from in his communications with me.
Right. So are we in consensus on this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, next.
The commission override. So you have this in your decorum rules on each agenda, but it's not codified. I think it's important.
Okay.
So
and you're on, just so we're all on the same page, you're on page
I'm on page 8 at the bottom. It's highlighted, commission override and reinstatement for discussion. So this is really two parts. The first is regarding removal. If the presiding officer instructs the sergeant at arms to remove someone who's violating the decorum rules, the commission should have the ability to override that decision. The question is by what type of vote?
I originally thought a simple majority, but, and I'm not doing this because I'm sitting in this chair. I'm doing this because whoever sits in this chair, this is a very big responsibility. It just is. And I could go either way, and I'm going to let you all decide, but I've gone back and forth on this. 1 minute I think a simple majority would be fine. Another minute I think a supermajority. So I'm going to leave it up to my commissioners.
Simple majority.
Yeah, I'm in favor of a simple majority.
I think if the presiding officer has done something that's beyond the pale, it's going to be quite obvious, and a simple majority will be sufficient.
Okay, fine. I go with my fellow commissioners on that.
Okay, and then the second part of that would be reinstatement. That's if someone was removed from a meeting or a prior meeting and has been banned and wants to start coming to commission meetings again. What would be the procedure for them being reinstated to sit in commission meetings? 1, and 2, what would the vote requirement be? Simple, super, unanimous?
Yeah, I guess it would be brought up at the next commission meeting, and then I would say just a simple majority vote. You know, this individual has petitioned to, you know, have the ban from the commission lifted, and then the commission can vote at that time.
So if I might, so there's written petition submitted in a timely fashion according to the clerk's rules for agenda timing and appropriate publication, and then heard on the agenda and voted on by simple majority. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And when would the commission override occur? The commission override would occur the same time that occurred, and they would be let in the meeting, so that would be... No,
this would happen later. This isn't in an instance where someone's been banned from meetings.
Okay.
But that shouldn't hang out there in perpetuity, right? They should have an opportunity to start going to meetings again. But what would that look like? What would be the mechanism for them to get the commission to allow them back?
I do want to be careful that we don't have something happen that we don't override them. They're banned and then they're allowed at the next meeting again. What's the point? What's the consequence? What's the remedy? So I do think that if they're banned for one meeting, they can't be banned forever. But if they're banned for one meeting, there should be at least a 1 meeting ban. I just think that's more. I just think there should be a minimum standard here. Okay, unless you all think I'm wrong. I mean, if not, what is the point of having decorum rules that we can't enforce, which we've been doing for 2 years now, 2.5 years, and there's no consequence?
Well, I'm sorry. So what's the distinction between being removed from a meeting and banned from further meetings? I mean,
well, and that's something that's the topic for discussion as well. Should that sit with the presiding officer? Does that need to be a vote of the commission? Removal is
with the presiding officer.
Subject to commission override, and enforced by the sergeant at arms. What about being banned?
Well, I think being banned would require, for me, I could see a person's removed, them coming back in the next commission meeting. Now, if they're banned a second, or if they're removed a second time, then I could see there being a ban.
That would equal a ban?
Yeah, I wouldn't ban somebody just for
Could you come up with some
one outburst and they're removed.
Right, I agree with you. Everybody has a bad day, right?
You're removed. You came back to the next commission meeting. You had some stuff going on. Now you're back at this commission meeting. Everything's fine. Come in.
I agree.
Make stuff. It would just be if that person came back in and continued, and there was a pattern where they're.
So if there's multiple incidences, can you come up with what is normal protocol?
Well, here's my thing with banning people from meetings.
Well, you can't ban them. I mean, you could ban them.
I mean, I think it should be, if not unanimous, definitely a supermajority, because it is a serious.
Yeah.
It is a serious penalty for something someone's done. So that's food for thought. I don't think, because of the potential exigent circumstances, I get why it has to sit with the presiding officer to get someone removed. But banning is not exigent, right? That's a discussion based on something that someone did. So I think that should be supermajority, if not unanimous. And reinstatement should be probably a little more lenient.
Could we do supermajority
For reinstatement?
for banning?
For banning, yes,
Yeah.
but reinstatement, I think
Simple
simple majority is
majority.
appropriate.
Yep. Does that work? Yep.
I'm sorry, Mayor Trotman, but I'm reaching the limit of my sitters' availability. Is there anything that you would like to prioritize? I feel like we've hit on some of the really sticky stuff,
Yeah.
and a lot of it is
I'm thinking if there's anything
now
else.
more merely procedural.
No, I think we've probably gotten, just the rules of the debate. The only thing I had wanted as a question for that I don't support is passing the gavel in a commission as small as ours. We're not a county commission with is very large. I think passing the gavel to make motions, the presiding officer rarely does it anyway. I always ask for a motion, but I think that should be able to be done without passing the gavel.
Yeah, that seems inappropriate for a commission of our size. I'm in agreement on that.
Okay, just so you have the benefit of the chief. Chief, is there anything else in enforcement you wanted to address while Commissioner Wise is here?
You know, I think you were right on point. When we do ban somebody, we're looking at things, and this is only me from a law enforcement perspective. People who have either engaged in physical conflict, brought unauthorized weapons or weapons, stuff that it's, detrimental and serious enough that, you guys, or those who...
I concur.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, and that's a big concern for us from the police side, to make sure that we don't get to those, to that,
Yeah, I don't think banning is a very major event, and I don't think it should be done lightly for light reasons. And it shouldn't be for political reasons. It shouldn't be because you disagree with somebody. It has to be something significant. So maybe y'all can work on that.
I just have one question, if the chief doesn't mind and you don't mind.
Absolutely. This impacts you more than anybody here, so.
I agree it should be a procedure, of course, and not my decision. But if somebody and I'm talking about extremely aggressively loses control, that maybe they don't have a good...
You have that authority, I believe, now by the United States Supreme Court.
And they very aggressively approach the dais, pointing and screaming and whatever, that my training would be to stop the situation totally. At that point, I would grab them and get them out. Now, that would be the last resort, and it probably will never happen. But I just want to know if that's okay with you guys. But it would have to be an extreme...
I have no problem with somebody being violent or attempting to be violent, or you're concerned that somebody's safety would be in order. I do think, and the chief and the attorney, I will defer to you on this, but I believe the United States Supreme Court already gave you that option.
I think that the officer should be able to get permission to, if he thinks that a person's being out of righty, to basically approach them and just talk to them, either privately or just talk to them.
Yeah.
I think we should be able to trust you, and I think that's where everybody's misunderstanding. I want it to where I trust the chief and I trust the officer to do it, and I want to be able to give the officer the power to, take the person outside and talk
before
to
it
them
escalates,
and
right?
calm it down.
Right.
I think
Before
that
it
would be
escalates.
much better than us as commissioner. Please escort that person out.
Right.
That's what
I have talked this with the attorney, and you hit a great point. I'm sorry that the issue here is that an administrative process has to come together with a criminal. Let me not use the word criminal. Help me.
Like there has to be
Safety.
legal authority.
Legal
for them
authority,
to-
right? So
Because
in that case, he's absolutely right. In that case, it's an assault. You're coming up, you're approaching, you're aggressive, you're using manners, you're pointing fingers. So, he's within his right to make sure he stops actions that can create further incident. So, but I plead and I ask the commission to allow myself, the attorney, more discussions, and the manager to make sure that the law and the process all come together. So when we do this, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
And
There's no
everybody,
doubt.
and let's be fair
And
to the
the
residents.
public will also know.
Let's be fair to the residents here as well,
Yeah.
because we don't have a tremendous amount of this. But I do think the residents have a right to feel safe in a meeting as well. And I think that's also critical.
Which, without getting into it, has been raised by
Several
some
times.
residents.
Yeah.
And we should curb that, I think.
Go ahead.
No, I agree, but I think also that if we give him the opportunity and say, okay, he can approach a resident and say, let's come outside, we'll calm it down. I really do. I mean, a lot of times,
I mean,
if an officer approaches me, I'm going to be more calm
Right.
than if somebody in the Adela says, you know, this and this.
Well, let me ask you something. If so, and I'm just going to have a hypothetical. So 3 people are calling out, and I pass the gavel, and I say, you're out of order. And we have 1 sergeant in arms, right? And there's 3 or 4 people. It is absolutely within his right to stand up and walk over. I'm not going to warn 3 and 4 and 5 people. I'll say, excuse me, because it's not always one person. This is easy to write language for one person. Mm-hmm. What becomes more difficult is when there's multiple people. And at that point, I do really believe that onus somewhat will shift to you in order to move towards the audience to tell them to stop. I do think you have your work cut out for you sometimes, in that you have to have discretion of how to best get the situation under control. And that's where your training and your professionalism will far exceed anything I can do with a gavel and a microphone.
So we're really having 2 conversations. One is about enforcement of the laws that already exist regarding crimes. They have that authority all day, every day, whether it's a meeting or not, and we can't strip them of that. We don't want to strip them of that.
Right.
And meetings are no different. If they see something, a sworn law enforcement officer can act immediately. Thank you. What we're trying to discuss potential codification on is kind of a lower legal authority regarding administrative procedures and what's the remedy if they're not followed. Mm-hmm. So it's just another layer, because I mean, we've been talking about this a lot, and we just want to make sure that if enforcement ever does have to actually happen, and I hope it doesn't, but if it ever does, the sergeant of arms is protected by the village's code that this was the administrative procedure and it was followed to the T. That's what the Key West case is. So,
and it also helps the presiding officer have a guidance on how to proceed and not have it be subjective. And I think that's also critical to protect all parties, and also this commission and this village from any legal action.
I'll give you an example. It's not illegal in general to scream out and interrupt people. It's not. But it violates the decorum rules for commission meetings. But what's the remedy if they do that? You can't arrest them. It's not technically illegal, but what authority would an officer have to remove them unless we codify something?
Could we have an ordinance similar to the noise ordinance where certain behavior would be identified as being something like disorderly conduct, you know, and they can be trespassed?
That's where the chief was going with it. Yeah.
Well, we're cops.
We're all talking about that. We have to identify whether it's in an ordinance or how we're going to go about this on the specifics of those specifics pertaining to meetings. Okay.
I see where you're going now.
Pertaining to meetings. So then we're crystal clear. The public's crystal clear. They've heard it 3 or 4 times in the readings that we have to do, whatever the law requires.
Yeah.
And nobody can argue it. And in the courts, listen, like what happened with the Key West, I really read that, and what made that, they overturned it is they followed the letter A, B, C, D.
They had an order. Yeah.
And that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
And it also keeps us honest. We have to follow the same rules.
Yeah.
And I think that's also very important, so the trust the trust from the public is there.
Well, you know, and having these things is really about also educating the public so that they understand the rules and they know what they can operate within. Right now, it's the Wild West.
It really is.
And we see it. And so I think that's, you know, there'll be some rumbling, but I think most people will look at it and say, you know what, you know, a rational person is going to say, I understand, it's good to finally have this stuff in place. And for the police, it's, you know, when you have a sergeant at arms, it's got to
and I want to thank you
somebody to have something that they can point to that provide them the protection as well.
And I want to thank you for making sure you brought this forward, Commissioner Tudor, because I think this is finally going to allow us to have a bit more formality and structure and safety.
In this part, I think I do like the idea that, and I trust I would agree to have the chief and the city manager and the attorney meet and come up with the best
Yeah.
part on this.
Absolutely.
Specific one, because this is
Absolutely.
with safety. And I think that the residents would respect it more if it comes from you, the city manager and the attorney, than from coming up here.
Agreed.
I think that's the biggest problem that we're gonna have, is people are thinking it's coming from here, when in reality, it's coming from the chief or the officer when he sees things reacting, people react differently.
And the most important part that we want to harp on is that whatever is brought forward to you will be within the guidelines of the law and to the letter of the law, and everybody will be able to. It's more acceptable because it'll be lawful, and that's important.
And it's important that we also stand by you. So when you bring these items, if this is what we say, this is what has to. I mean, we have to be able to back up the chief and back up the presiding
Well,
officer.
and I think I will tell you that this was an initial discussion that I was part of at one point, and then I pulled out and said, just for the record, I said this really should be coming from all of you. We know what the problems are. You all come up with the legal solutions, and I want to thank the chief for working so hard on this, and the manager, and the attorney, all three.
Yeah, like I said, in this one, I think it should just be those three individuals
Yeah.
that make it and bring it to the commission, and then we as a commission should trust the judgment of the city manager, the attorney, and the police chief.
Okay, so are we all in agreement on that? Yes.
Vice Mayor, and the end goal here is we want the safety of the residents, the safety of the commissioners,
And the officers.
and the officers, and we just want the process to be smooth,
definitely.
and everybody can
I agree.
do the business that we have to. So.
Okay. Since it is 9:30, and I'm not going to cut us off, I just want to make sure we've covered some of the main points. I'm going to let the attorney refer to what some of the main points you have questions on for us.
So, okay, we'll go back. We talked about the public comment issue. We're kind of at an impasse with that, and that's, these are all potential talking points. So, limitation on the amount of sponsored items.
Which page is that?
Sorry, that page 5.
5.
It's the highlighted portion towards the top. This was copied from the county's procedures. So
We had we normally had 2.
there's a cap, or
Well-
I have 2 questions. One is there in practice, the way you're doing things now in practice, is there a de facto cap? That's one. Then 2, do you want to have a codified cap? And then 3, if you do, I think there should be an exception for rollover items, because that's not
Absolutely.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I do think we're not getting through some of our meetings now. And there's there's an added complication, which is a co-sponsored, so it should be the sponsorer in this case, because you could have a co-sponsored item as well, which would put
Well,
you
there
over
has
the
to
limit, and I don't think that should account towards your limit.
Well,
So
there has-
rollover and co-sponsor
Yes,
shouldn't
there's a
count
prime
towards the limit.
sponsor.
The prime sponsor.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I'm sorry, that is already there. My apologies.
So then you're saying the person will not be allowed to roll over his item to the next meeting? if you don't-
No,
No,
I'm
opposite
saying
of that.
If you do get rolled to the next meeting, that doesn't count as one of your 2
Yeah.
or 3 for that meeting, because that's not fair, right?
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I went back and forth between 3 and 2. The problem is, if you have all 5 commissioners, you have 10 items. I think it should be 2 only to be equitable.
But
Well,
with all due respect, we never have all 5 commissioners put items on the agenda. We never have it. We haven't. I mean, you put items, I put items, Commissioner Tudor has put items, but the other ones have really not put items.
But it's mostly the village manager, it's mostly items of business, that's the whole point of this, but for policies, I don't think there are that many policies that we have to have more than 2 anyway. So I very seldom do we go over that limit, so and most, I'm sorry, I did mean, most of the, I think even I had made a mistake with you, and I apologized. I think if you recall, I apologized when I ran into you, is there was an ordinance proposed by one of the former mayors that basically had 2 as that item.
I would have no problem with 3. I mean, very seldom when I put up 3 items, but there might be a time, like in this next, commission meeting, if I decide to have 3 items. I think 3 items is more than enough. Or let's use judgment. I think that if I see that the there's that many commission meetings, commissioners putting up items, then I'll say, okay, I'm only going to put up 2 because there's a lot of commissioners putting up items. I don't know if we can see that. That's one of the reasons why I wanted ahead of time, just to know what commissioners are putting up. Because if mayor's putting up 2 items and he's putting up 2 items, I'm not going to put up 3 because we're not going to get through the business. If I see he doesn't have any and she doesn't have any, then I should be able to go to my limit 3 items if I decide.
May I ask, just real quick, Commissioner Tu, did you have a thought on this before I ask another question?
Yeah, I'm going to split the baby here. What if you, 2.5 items? No, I'm just joking. No, but what I'm thinking is, if you set the number at 2, but let's say, for example, I have this 3rd item that I really want to put on. Could we have it, or would it be possible to have it to where I could reach out to the village manager and say,
could somebody else sponsor the item?
Could somebody else, or would somebody be willing to?
I think that's simple.
Basically, lend me their second spot, their second item, and then I would put 3 on, because I understand that you're talking about if everybody puts 2 on, you've got 10 action items right there, or 10 action / discussion items. So,
right,
and some of those can go.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the problem I'm worrying. And the only reason I picked the 2, because I back and forth on 3 as well, Vice Mayor, but the 2 is, we're just, right now, under current circumstances, we're just way over in our meetings.
Well, this is a workshop. We can wait until we get and get some feedback from the other 2 commissioners.
That's true.
Because I'd be curious to see what.
I've gotten a lot of feedback in this meeting. So I can have, a tighter.
And then decide at that point. Yep. Sounds good.
I just have one question on this. For the 3 that are here, I know you're batting around a number regarding the limit for agenda items. Are you differentiating between action and discussion, or do you think there should be a cap period?
Cap.
I think just a cap.
Just a cap.
Because that was my other question. Items. Okay, and then and it would not apply to any ordinance or resolution that was being called back up to correct a typo. That wouldn't apply. That wouldn't count towards anyone's numbers, and rollovers wouldn't count towards the numbers either. Okay. Limitation on deferral of agenda items. So I think this was from the county's version. The county has like a 3 deferral rule, which means if you keep putting something on the agenda and you keep rolling it, if there's a vote to table, that's different. But if you put an item on the agenda, let's say, I want us to buy Easter eggs, and you say, you know what, I'll defer to the next meeting, and then you put it on the next meeting.
But you do this as your own choice because.
Right. This is not commission action.
Right. So you decide. I don't like the. Right. I don't like that a commissioner's not here. I'm going to wait, and I do it again and do it again. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a reasonable thing.
The county has a 3 deferral rule. After 3, the item's deemed withdrawn by the commissioner. So, and there's exceptions here. Vice Mayor Samari is shaking his head. How many deferrals do you think?
So you should be able to publish it.
I should be able to bring it up each time that I want to bring it up. And there might be a time that I don't want to bring it up this meeting because I see the meeting's going on. The next meeting might be the same thing. The next meeting, so it just, there should be no time limit. Because an item is not accepted until I get a second on it.
Well, that's different. That's different.
Commissioner Tudor, I reckon.
This is the difficulty with if you're able to put an item on, defer it, and there's no time, no cap to it. I can see it being used for political purposes, because what will happen is, we're trying to cap potentially the number of items a commissioner can put onto an agenda. And let's say we do say, okay, well, you know what, let's say we even say it's 2 per commissioner or a total of 10 maximum. What you don't want is somebody to be putting a placeholder on each commission meeting that may preclude another commissioner from bringing forth information.
Right.
So that's the only reason why
they do this in the state house. They only have a certain number of items, and I mean this is not an uncommon. process.
I would have an issue if it was like one or two, but I think, once you, and I don't know if we want to say 3 deferrals in a row.
But we haven't had.
We want to do something along those lines, or 3 deferrals within a 6-month period.
Yep, I think that sounds reasonable.
But we haven't had any time where all the commissioners that put up agenda items.
No, but
No, I think
my
you
mindset of
misunderstand
when you
what
do
they're
these
asking.
policies and procedures, I always think about worst case scenario.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, the way, we may be doing it now, may be fine, but I'm just thinking, okay, how do we avoid, potential isures when a new
There
commission
might
comes
be
on?
a time that as a commission, I might not think I have the support this time. I might have it 3 months from now. So while you're doing this, you're telling me that I'm only going to be able to put this up as, after the 3rd time I'm figuring out that I don't have the support right now, for whatever reason. But later on, I might have the support. I'm not going to be able to bring up that agenda.
No, we,
That's a separate issue.
that's,
No,
That's a separate issue. She's going to bring it up now. It's a
I
separate
think
spot.
I think that comes up in Melissa's, that comes up, on page 13 in item reconsideration. And renewal on the next page. So this is copied straight from the county procedures.
Number 13.
On page 13, item 11 is item reconsideration. That's if it's during the same meeting.
Yeah.
And then on the next page, renewal is, and I think this is what you're talking about, Vice Mayor. If you want to bring something up that failed before, you don't want it to, you want the opportunity to bring it up, because let's say the climate's different and you think it will pass this time. You want a mechanism to do that. That's what this would be.
Because I think it happened once, and I think that's the one you apologized, something about that you can't bring up something for 6
Yeah,
months.
I thought it, I was
that I do
misinformed
know.
by,
Yeah, I know.
no,
whatever,
I'll
who
call
was-
staff.
yes.
I was misinformed and thought that resolution had passed.
So this would,
And that-
there would be a renewal procedure for you to like revive something. And there would be a mechanism for that.
I don't want it to wait, I have to wait 6 months before I can bring the agenda item back up.
But I think this is where we have to really discuss the difference between village business and politicizing things. And I think we all agree that we need to be moving village business forward, whatever that business is. And I think one of the because the community, our governance, our responsibility is that we move things forward for the betterment of the village. To do that, please allow me to finish. Please allow me to finish. To do that, I believe sincerely that we can't be throwing things back and forth every time we do it. It just is not healthy.
And this may actually maybe solve the concern. If you actually I can't speak, read a little further down, it talks about, during the 6-month period following the said action, unless application for renewal is presented and approved by a supermajority vote.
Right.
So the 6 month is just for, but if you're like or any commissioner is very passionate, say, listen, I really want to get this solar ordinance on here. It was, you can present it in the supermajority of the commission.
That's every single commission. It's not going to...
No, it's 4 out of 5.
No, 4.
4 out of 5.
4.
It's not everybody.
Yeah.
Well, no,
It's not unanimous,
You're
it's
not
just 4.
counted because you're one of the 5th, so it's
No,
really
you're
every
counted.
single
No, you're
thing.
You're counting. You would vote yes. You want to bring your item forward.
You're already yes. So you
And
only
you
need
just
3
got to
more.
get 3 more people say, let's hear the
Right, you're
the
moving
item.
for it to be renewed. So you're the first.
Yeah, so you're making that motion because you get the vote on your motion.
Right.
On
See,
your,
all my items that I brought up has nothing to do with political. These are items that I believed in. And to say that I have to wait 6 months before I can bring it up again is just...
Well, those if the items I think you're referring to, those were tabled and those are different. Those wouldn't apply to to these.
Apply here.
Right, because the commission made a decision to table it to a different meeting. This is when the item comes up, is shot down, and you don't want to wait the 6 months to bring it back. You can move the commission to renew the item at another meeting. That's what this procedure is. And then the other procedure is the deferral rule, which is if you keep adding something to the agenda but then you don't proceed with it, not because it rolled, because you ran out of time, but because you pulled it and put it on another agenda, you can only do that 3 times before it's deemed waived. You don't have to do that in this version, and this is something I want to talk about. You don't have to defer to the next meeting. Because I see what you're saying. Well, what if I know that in 4 months I had a better shot? Can I just defer and bring, like, what would be my time limit to renotice that deferred item? So those are things I wanted to get feedback on.
What is,
I mean, the village is a small place, so I don't know that you need to be hyper technical. I do think there's a benefit to a deferral rule.
it seems a little bit, that's what I was going to say, it seems a little bit stringent.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't know if 3 is the number, but you also don't want someone who's putting the same thing on an agenda every meeting, but then never proceeding with it and pulling it.
Then it's being used as a tool, yeah.
Right, and that hasn't happened. That hasn't happened here, but this is from the county's procedures, and I think it's something that should be considered. I think 3 is a little tough, but...
What would you recommend instead of 3?
Well, I'm sorry.
If we don't
I'm gonna
get-
think on
If we
that.
don't get through a meeting, the item is pulled.
Well, it's rolled.
It's rolled.
Well, it's
That's a
rolled.
separate
It's
rule.
not deferred.
That's not deferred.
Defer is when it's your item and you pull it.
Like if I had this item, if this was a regular commission meeting and I had, my item was procedures, discussion
Okay,
of procedures, and I said, you know what, I'm going to pull this. I want to defer this to it. And then I put it on next month, but not if we have a vote and we decide, I want to table this to the next commission meeting.
Right, if the commission tables it or you ran out
Well,
of
let's say
time,
we ran out of time, right, and I said, Commissioner Samara says, I'd like to table my own item. That's not a deferral. And we all vote on it, correct?
Right. This
That's
is like
different.
When you pull.
I'm just going to pull it. I have a right to pull my own item. I'm deciding to pull it. I'm done. You can't bring it.
It's food for thought. Maybe this is something that we can get the benefit of all 5, feedback of all 5, but I recommend a cap.
Yeah.
I don't know that 3 is the cap, but I think it's a good rule, and
I think
the
it's-
spirit of the rule is something to consider. Okay, so let's just get down to it. Censure.
Is that the last?
That's the last one.
Okay.
So typically, you see censures in 2 scenarios. It's the commission as a body censuring one of its own, or if you see, it's page 14, sorry, the highlighted at the bottom. Or you see the commission as a body make the decision to censure someone on the other side of the dais. Rarely does it happen. You really see it with lobbyists. I know that the village doesn't have any real commercial real estate except for the church, so I don't know that would come into play a lot, but if you're going to take the time to codify a censure procedure, I recommend you not keeping it within the commission, that you have the authority to censure someone outside as a body. I think that would be pretty extreme, but so this draft language is censure is a formal act by the commission as a body which publicly condemns and reprimands an individual or entity whose action runs counter to the village's acceptable standards for behavior, civility, order, and decorum. That's what censure is. Then the procedure, which is what I would like feedback on, is the village commission may, as a body, censure any individual or entity by a supermajority vote of the commission members present. No individual commission member has the authority to unilaterally censure or otherwise publicly reprimand any individual or entity during a commission meeting or at any time whatsoever on behalf of the village of Biscayne Park. Any commission censure must be memorialized in a signed written resolution detailing the conduct and the basis for the censure. This came up in a Broward municipality. I won't say which one, but if you Google, you can probably find it. A commissioner said something very inappropriate to another female commissioner on the dais.
I know that.
Yeah, it was bad.
It was very bad.
And the commission made the decision as a body to formally censure what he said. So you typically see censure to regulate each other from the dais when, if there's no doubt about it, what a commissioner did was extremely inappropriate. And this is the remedy. And I know this is coming up in other meetings because there's no mechanism. This would provide a mechanism. The question is, what do you want it to look like? What do you want the procedure to be? Do you want to give notice in a separate hearing? Because censure is pretty serious. It can ruin a political career potentially. So I don't think it should be taken lightly, but I do think it should be codified because you don't have that right now. And I do recommend the language about individuals don't have the ability to individually reprimand on behalf of the Village of Biscayne Park, because that if the village is making a decision to censure another person or a company, that needs to be...
That should have a due process. I would assume that we have to have, because this is something, this is a very big deal, and I think it has to have enough, it can't be abused. It can't be used lightly or without due process. I just think we have to be very careful about that.
I think it should be, the censure should be at a separate, separate...
A special meeting?
Special meeting just for that, to where it's open and, the person is allowed to defend themselves.
That's in line with what the mayor's saying, to have a some sort of...
Yes,
I didn't want to dictate what the due process was. I want to leave it to the legal folks.
No.
But I do think this is a serious enough piece.
It should be a hearing. No, definitely, I agree. It should be a hearing.
But we have to be careful. There's a difference between a hearing and a trial. There's some very careful language, and I'll leave that up to the attorney on that.
We could do a public hearing with an opportunity to respond, and the notice has to be given in writing of the intent to censure.
Right.
That way.
Well, let me talk about that for a minute, because that's kind of interesting. And that is some things need immediate and some things don't. So if somebody comes up and makes a giantly racist statement or is doing misogynistic comments, or at what point, how do you not address it right then and there? The censure can occur later, but can we not then make a motion to censure at that point, so then that it becomes a hearing?
Okay, so if an item to discuss...
And I'm just giving generic examples.
Yeah.
Something egregious.
If the item to discuss setting a censure hearing is on an agenda, because again, the commission should have to say, yeah, I agree, we should give them a hearing and we should let them explain themselves or whatever. That item should have to at least be seconded during agenda approval, because if this is a unilateral thing that nobody else is on board with, I think it should require a co-sponsor. Because again,
No, I think a co-sponsor is appropriate.
Because
it tells you whether it's
censoring
so
as a commission
severe.
is so serious that, again, I think it should be at least a supermajority, if not unanimous, but you should at least know you have a co-sponsor.
I agree.
Before it proceeds. I mean, that's my 2 cents and recommendation, but...
Because that'll stop grandstanding. That'll make sure that there's no way this is political. And I think that's important, because you don't want to create a politicizing of a censure. I think the other issue that I have is that if it happens right then and there at a meeting, so let's say, hypothetically, without...
Let's say I go crazy.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Crazy. So Mr. Crazy goes and he loses it, and he starts ranting and raving about the ills of all female women in the planet. Okay, so go, Mr. Tudor. That's never going to happen. All right, so if he did such a thing, and the commission found it so egregious, I as the presiding officer would do what? Do we then say we would, I think this warrants a censure hearing, or do we then say this is something, an item to discuss later, and then have a due process? I think that leaves enough heat and time for it to cool down. I think that may be more appropriate.
And notice and an opportunity
to remedy
themselves in writing,
right.
And maybe hire counsel, depending on what it is.
Right.
And I just want to be clear, censure would be essentially a formal shame on you from...
That's what it is.
Right, so... Although it doesn't have any... What's the word? Like, there's no forfeiture to it on its face, but there's a reputational forfeiture potentially. Yeah. So, because you're not kicking them off the commission or cutting their salary or
right.
issuing any sort of monetary penalty, but censure's really serious. I mean, again, if you Google what happened to the person in that Broward municipality, they ended up on the front page of a lot of newspapers over that censure.
Yeah.
And people didn't know who he or she was before that.
And we also don't want to create an avenue where we could create that unnecessarily for the village. So I think having a co-sponsor minimally should give pause. And I do think it has to be a minimum supermajority. I do. That then the question is the person who, this is another question, if the person who is being censured they're voting on it as well, correct? And that's an interesting problem.
No, that's a conflict.
Okay, so that, I just want to make sure, that was, so in this case, it would be 3 out of 4 in this body.
If there were 4 present, if you had all 5 on the dais that day, if you had 4, 1 is conflicted out, and your supermajority is 2.
I would rather, because I could see somebody not showing up to a meeting for that purpose. I would rather, that is a concern of mine. In order to avoid the conflict, they just don't show up to the parade, so to speak.
I almost feel like there's that part of me who would, in a perfect world, I like to see the requirement for the full participation of the commission.
Yes.
And if, let's say, the censor is on person A and person B is a strong supporter of A, and so person B is like, oh, I can't make that meeting,
Yeah, exactly.
then,
Right, because
maybe then
it's a
that's grounds for
situation.
something,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
okay,
there should be a
so-
requirement for all commission to attend a censure,
It
I
has to be
think.
a unanimous vote of all the other 4 commissioners to censure. Is that what you're saying?
No, but
it
I
would still
think they'll
be
have to be
supermajority.
attendance. Supermajority, but they have to attend. Everybody has to
I
attend.
see what you're
Board of
saying.
Commissioners have to-
For that hearing,
Of course.
everyone needs to
Yeah,
show up.
everybody needs to show up to attend to hear.
Oh, I would never go for a board of commissioners are not there.
Yeah.
No, you as a commission, as once as I said, I would rather be censored by the commission than to be censored by the ethics.
And there should be some major way to make them come, because I don't think,
We
yeah.
can codify mandatory attendance.
And if they don't come, then the census is hold off until the next, sooner or later, they're going to miss 4 meetings, 5 meetings.
And I'm no longer a commissioner, so yeah. Okay, I think
Does
that's all
anyone
set.
else- I mean, I think I have enough to put something together.
The only thing I wanted to, just to see if the fellow support on is, and Commissioner Wise already expressed it, is I just do think making a motion and having them pass gavels and all that is too formal in this, for
Where
this
are you- I'm
5.
sorry, Mayor, where-
There's one line about passing a gavel if the presiding officer making a motion. It almost never happens anyway here, but it's.
Which one is it?
Yeah,
There's,
I'm sorry, Mayor, where are we?
I'm trying to remember where it is, but there's one line that says, in order to, because we've never done that historically in this village, I think it's inefficient, and I also think it's overkill for something our size, is passing to have to pass a gavel in order to make a motion, or second. It just seems,
Oh, I see what you.
yeah, that's
I don't know
just,
where it is.
when
but-
they have 9 commissioners, it's meant for a much larger body. It's not done in smaller municipalities or smaller governances.
Yeah, that's like the talking stick.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Pass the stick. And
Um,
Commissioner Wise agrees with me, and so I'll let my fellow commissioners comment. And that's all I have for this evening. And thank you for all your work on this, by the way.
I'm glad we have the rules of debate in there, because I think that's also good for.
Well, which
new-
page are you on?
No, just
on
page
12.
12. And these are
Yeah.
usually just, it's good to have in there because we talk about Robert's rules.
Okay, so it was number 2 that I
But for a new
objected to.
commissioner coming on, it's nice to have this thing and like a general cheat sheet about them.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I think culture comes from the top, and the more formal the meetings are held amongst the commission, and again, hope springs eternal. That'll start to radiate out, and maybe the meetings will run a little smoother.
Yeah, and if you will go through this, some of this I can look at, I looked at seemed a little bit like, clearly was not us, it was clearly a much bigger body. If you could just clean it up and make it more appropriate for us, like we don't have machines. So, if you could just go through.
Oh, that's, speaking of I can do that, because again, most of this is from the counties.
Yeah, you'll
just to
pare it
have a
down to
roadmap for
something-
discussion, and some
Yeah.
of it really doesn't apply to the village.
Good.
But,
Recording.
yeah, why reinvent the wheel when you can just.
No, it's fantastic.
I had a question. This is I think this will probably be my final question for purposes of this meeting. The rules of decorum, page 9, rules for recording meetings. So, okay. The residents totally have a right to record meetings, whether it's a phone, a Sony tape recorder, camera, what have you. They have the right. So does the press. And without getting into specifics, I want to make sure that there are recording rules in place in the event the village has press, and that there are procedures in place for that. So this is, I think, I think this was from the counties. No, the rules of decorum were from that California
Yes,
ordinance you
from
found.
Montclair.
Okay, so, yes, I think this is from the Montclair, but,
That was the one you liked, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I don't know
because
if there's any feedback on rules for recording.
the issue I have is I think at some point I'm hopeful that we'll be able to deal with the technology piece in a more cohesive manner, which we haven't done yet. But I do think that we, as a body, have to deal, and I think this really, once again, should go back to the chief and some of the issues of security, because I know when we had conversations about that, equipment and other things can become security measures. So I would like to also see the chief, and I'm assuming because we did discuss this, the chief and I, a little bit, and he said that it should be, he actually recommended some of the stuff that you put in here.
Well,
So
this is from the Montclair ordinance for the most part, and
but I'm just telling you some of the things that you put in here regarding location and that kind of thing, not putting it on property of the village. Those types of things were things that he was recommending to me.
And I think it, and I know why he did that because we've spoken about this a lot. And I'll give you an example. Putting something on the dais gives the resident a reason to be approaching the dais, right? Because they're stuck. So
There was also stuff, there was a recording device actually left on the podium by a former commissioner, which I thought was a legal issue because the people going up there, even though they knew they had no right to privacy because they're in a public meeting, they didn't anticipate somebody else from the audience's mic recording them up at the podium.
Well, I
So
mean,
that was another, to me, that just didn't seem right.
I mean, there is no expectation of privacy, especially when you're addressing the public in public comment in a public meeting. That being said, I have a little bit of a different take on it. It's like tipsy coachman. I got there, but I got there a different way. I don't want the village to have premises liability issues. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Because if things are being affixed or placed on village property, and you know, for example, there's some proposed language here about cords, and the sergeant at arms can unplug if the manager or the presiding officer thinks it's a potential safety risk. If someone trips over a cord or a tripod or something like that, do you think they're suing the resident who put it there or the village? They're going to sue the village, right? So I like this language. I think it thinks of mostly everything, but maybe there's some things it doesn't. There's one carve out worth mentioning, and that's if it interferes with the village's equipment. With, you know, you know, sometimes your cell phone rings, your computer might make a funny sound or something like that. So if it creates white noise for the mic so that the residents can't hear the commissioners, or if it obstructs the view of the residents that are trying to see, you know, trying to follow the meeting, something like that. So I thought that was helpful language. And again, I'm less concerned with these for residents doing it. I'm more concerned with it when press shows up to commission meetings. And I mean, I think I'll leave it at that. You guys all know what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and if it's in place, then it protects the presiding officer saying, no, channel whatever, you need to go to the back corner, and your cord can't be there, and your tripod can't be there, and you can't put all your equipment up here on the dais. You know,
It doesn't put the onus on myself or the.
Right, it's just the rule.
It's the rule. It's a simple rule. Yeah. And I think they're reasonable. I think they're reasonable rules.
Okay, is there, I know it's getting late. Is there anything else specific that, I think we went through a lot.
No, I think
great.
we're at a good point
Yeah.
with this.
I have plenty to
Yeah.
get something together.
Do we all agree to allow the attorney to go ahead and start drafting something and getting it to us for review? Oh, and we can't actually, do we have a consensus on that? I'm sorry. And that's not a direction, because we can't give you direction, because that's a vote.
No, you can't, but I can tell you that I have plenty here to get a work product before the commission, even if it's just for discussion for the October meeting, even if it's not for first read, just for discussion. I don't know that another workshop's necessary. We really dug into some.
Yeah. I think we did great.
procedural things, and I don't think I need another workshop to draft a proposed ordinance.
No, I think we're at the point where if it comes back at a commission meeting, I would I would think about bringing it, if it was me, bringing it back as a discussion item to get some input from maybe the other two commissioners on a couple of the items. And then I could see it then coming back at the... For first read at the November commission meeting, for example.
I agree. I think there's a consensus on like 80% of this. So I think discussion's a good idea, and I don't think it would require a whole workshop.
Yeah.
No, I think that's fine.
To discuss I mean, there's like a few sticking points, but I think that could be addressed in a commission meeting.
Yeah, I think so.
You agree? Sure. Okay, perfect.
I'll take it from there and have a work product for discussion, and
Great.
I'll highlight the real...
The ones that were not in agreement, where there wasn't confluence. Yep.
With all five. So.
All right, well, with that, I thank everybody for their incredible hard work, and all the commissioners as well, and Commissioner Tudor for making sure we actually move this forward in a timely way. So thank you, and thank you for the clerk for all her work. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn? Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Meeting adjourned. Or workshop adjourned.
When is the communication?